SF man again for another bad argument on the Kalam or some nonsense. Welcome back, SF.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
So welcome back. I already know you're at least 18, and I know that you're a Muslim. So it sounds like you probably have a new, better argument this time. So what's your new argument?
There wasn't an argument before. You just attacked me.
No, I didn't attack you. I attacked your religion, and you just didn't like it.
No. How did you just address me when I came up?
I called you a pedophile, and what else did I call you? A wife beater, but that was based on our prior arguments.
So what was it that I said that you concluded that about me?
I don't know. You can go watch it back. It's on YouTube. Did you come to
So
did you
okay.
come to cry or did you come to bring another argument?
I'm not crying, bro. I'm expecting you to act like an adult.
Nah, you shouldn't do that.
So you're not an adult.
Oh no, I am an adult, but I have no obligation to treat you like an adult based on our prior conversations and based on your belief system.
Based on my religion.
Yeah.
So you have an issue with people just based off their religion.
No, I have an issue with your religion.
Just mine.
Specifically yours and Christianity, yeah.
So you just don't like 4 billion people.
Oh no! I don't like your religion. Your religion creates a toxic people. Like the reason why you are the way you are is because you grew up in a religious system that enables you to be the way that you are.
I'm a convert. I didn't grow up a Muslim.
And whatever you want to call it, your religion is the problem. So, did you have an argument today, or did you just come to complain? You lost? You concussed already, or
I've what?
are you concussed? Do you know where you're at right now?
No, I'm gonna be honest. I'm just kind of kerfuffled
Yeah, I'd
at
be
your
kerfuffled
behavior.
too. Yeah, if I believed
Yeah,
in a religion
your
that taught
behavior
that it
is
was okay to
disgusting.
marry 9-year-olds.
Your behavior is
Yeah,
disgusting.
marrying 9-year-olds is disgusting.
Your behavior is disgusting.
Marrying 9-year-olds is disgusting.
You just openly
Do you
said you attack
do
people
you
just because of
agree?
their
Do you
religion.
agree that marrying 9-year-olds is disgusting?
No, of course it's not. Why would it be disgusting?
Oh, see, that's why you're disgusting. See,
Are
I
you?
live in a world where I believe marrying children is bad, and you don't. That's why you're a pedophile, not me. So as you came in, I told you what you were, and now you're admitting that you are. I started the conversation by labeling you a pedophile because you're a pedophile, and now you just admitted that you are a pedophile.
So I'm
So
a PDF.
yeah, you're a piece of shit, is what you are.
I'm a PDF.
I have no obligation to treat you like an adult until you come up here and admit that it's not okay to marry children. You can fuck all the way off with that. All right, we'll get our next guest in here. We got off to a banging start. And keep in mind, it's only consensual when you're banging adults. You can't do children like the Muslims do. Children can't consent. Sam, thank you so much for the super chat. Says also got the nickname Shmooly for it being Hebrew for Samuel. I know some of the Hebrew to English names are wild. But is that accurate or bogus? Actually, it's not. It's not bogus. So if you look at some of the Hebrew names, they don't translate into English the way you would think they would. Not at all. The problem is they went through like multiple layers of transliteration to get to where they're at. And sometimes when you transliterate names, it doesn't really work out the same way. You know what I mean? So Shmuli's not bad actually. I don't. I think it's Shmuel. I don't think you need the I at the end of it. If there's an I at the end of it, I'm not sure what it's doing there. It doesn't really seem to serve a function unless it's acting as like some sort of a pronoun or preposition. But I don't think it wouldn't in this case. Robert says, "Can you smell what the rock of Doug is cooking? It's burnt already. We already got one burnt PDF file in the kitchen. Didn't take very long." And Boogie, thank you for the $5 super chat. It says, with everything happening in America, your mission of showing Christians the reality of their book has never been more important. Thank you. Hail Doug. Hail Doug, the Rock of Ages. And I agree. The reason why this work is important is because there are religious idiots who will get up here and justify marrying children for no other reason than their prophet did, and their religion says it's okay. Serial Dude, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, Shale Doug, may the courts be with you, the beginning and the end, the Taukum and the Omika. Rockalations 666. Big W. Do not reject the stone that the builders rejected. Make him the cornerstone of your life, friends. And Gumby, thank you so much for the $34.99. NZ says, to vaccinate my girls against religion, I invented the sky donkey and his adversary, the death monkey. This is good. 10 years ago. They run their own nonprofit, Project Pencil Case, and my wife runs their own secular charity resource. I love this. Gumby, I'd love to hear more about what you've done. This sounds amazing. Shit, if there's a way I can participate, let me know. And Silver Surfer, good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for the $5 super hype. And Urzma, good to see you, friend. Says 3 seconds in, child marriage. It doesn't take long. I called it. I knew. I don't know why he keeps coming back. He knows every conversation is going to devolve into that. Osmo, thank you for the 1999 super thanks. I really appreciate that. Big W. Let's get our next guest in here. We're going to try to get someone from the YouTube to see if we can get the audio working this time. Brandon, welcome in. Of course, the audio is not working. What the hell is happening right now? This is crazy. This is bananas. Why would the audio just not work? I mean, I can import the audio directly from the video scene and do it.
I can see the microphone reacting to me.
Now, when you talk, it does show that you're talking, but I still can't hear you.
Exactly, and I can hear you.
Can anyone else hear him? I can't hear him. I can't hear a damn thing. Actually, it might be the browser. I'm doing the audio test as well. Give me a second.
Yep.
I think my browser's just fucked up today. I don't know what's going on with my browser. If I click on my headphones and say import to headphones and hit test doesn't work. So the audio for my browser isn't. It's like it's not turned on. It says it's muted. Maybe let's try this. Okay, now the audio works.
Hello.
All right, Brandon. I think we're good to go now.
All right. How's it going?
That's bananas. Okay, so I don't know why, but for some reason, when I opened up my Florp browser, it just decided that it was going to open up with all the tabs muted. Usually you have to manually go into the browser and mute them for that to happen. I don't know why that would happen. Anyways, Brandon, welcome in. We're here now. Brandon,
Yes, sir.
Are you a believer or a heathen?
I believe I'm a believer. I am struggling with this all.
Fair enough. What type of God do you believe in? Do you believe in like the Christian God?
I am coming from that background, yes.
Okay. And I'm going to ask two questions. Let me start out with the easy question. The easy question is, what about Christianity are you questioning?
The validity of what I've been told.
Fair enough.
In comparison, what other people are describing that same information. So I'm getting different stories from different sources, and it's just not making sense at this point.
Yeah, I get that. And probably, have you read some of the Bible for yourself?
Yeah, I did take the time to go through the Bible entirely. And it's been interesting because trying to accept it has been its own process that I'm not sure how to describe it, from hearing it originally to becoming accepting it when I don't think it makes any sense, but I'm just, trying to say, well, maybe I don't understand, so maybe that's how it is, and maybe that's what's good, even though it doesn't seem like it to me.
Right. And I'm sure you've probably taken some of the more difficult passages, probably to your pastor and be like, hey, what's going on here? Like, why is God allowing slavery? How come God seems to hate women? Like,
Right.
did you
Right.
receive any acceptable answers, or are they mostly kind of trash answers?
Mostly just trash answers where I lead to basically more questions, and that's actually where I'm at this point, where I don't know who to ask at this point, because I go to churches and try to find out, and not really finding any progress here in this.
Sure. So I'll tell you from my experience is that there are no good answers. Whether you're asking a pastor or a Bible professor, they have the same answers today that they had 2,000 years ago. If you read the writings of the earliest church fathers, the arguments for Christianity are roughly the same. They haven't advanced at all. In fact, they've probably gotten even weaker now that we have science. So if you're looking for answers and you're getting frustrated, just know that you're kind of asking for an impossible feat. There actually aren't good answers, which is why you can't seem to find them. But let me ask you a more difficult question now,
Sure.
which is what's keeping you in it still?
There's definitely this internal, whatever it might be called, that I don't know how to describe it exactly, but I think it boils down to, what if I'm wrong? What if it's, basically when I started in this faith, I definitely came from beforehand being an atheist, thinking more or less that this was made up stories and it has its place or something, but uh, it's more or less, yeah, just stories.
Hmm.
Because it definitely seems to be wisdom to be found in a lot of this information. And
Hmm.
when I basically said, maybe I'm wrong about all that, and maybe this is the real, actual, true word from God, and the way that God is, even though it doesn't make sense to me, He did it this way. It's really written in this book. And the reason why I say that I struggle with understanding is just because of my sinful nature, and I'm so backwards and wrong that when I read this and it seems backwards and wrong, that's just because of my damage, and I need to figure out how to fix that with the Holy Spirit, and just the thing that I keep leaning on is I want to know what's true, and so it's just strange that what's true, if you really study this scripture, is that it contradicts itself, and
Yep,
yeah,
a lot of times.
it's just very strange, because I would think people that dedicate decades of their life would be aware of this and would talk about it openly and discuss why and all that. And but yeah, you asked me, why am I holding on to it? I think it boils down to like fear, like what if I'm wrong, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So let me. I think that for a lot of people, the fear is what keeps them in it. I personally have some friends and family that are either in that same boat or were in the same boat. So let me deal a little bit with the fear, because it sounds like the fear that you have is afraid that you're going to go to hell. And so
Yeah.
we can address that a little bit, right? So, like, if we do believe that if God is good, He's all knowing, He's all loving, He's all powerful, different things like that, then maybe one
Hmm.
thing we should ask ourselves is the Christian concept of hell, does it match with this idea of God being those characteristics? And I don't think it does. And I'll give you a reason why that is, right? So basically, in Christianity, we kind of have this idea that all human beings, no matter how little or how small, are going to sin. And even if you say that, well, there is like an age of accountability, you could say that for now it's 13. I don't know what they would have viewed it as during the biblical time period. Let's just say for argumentation's
Sure.
sake it's 13, right? So let's imagine I
Sure.
turn 13 and then
Mm.
I immediately tell a fib to my parents. I've now lied, I've sinned, I broke one of the 10 commandments, right? Now,
Right.
according to Christianity, if that same day somebody presents the gospel to me and I'm like, man, that sounds silly, and then I die, well, I just went to hell,
Correct. Yeah.
right? So
Exactly. According to the scripture. Yes.
right,
I believe
according
so.
exactly. So according to the book, God will send a 13-year-old child to hell who only sinned once as the same person who executed 6 million people in the gas chamber in World War II. They get the same punishment. We can't call that justice, can we?
I cannot.
But the
No
Bible
way.
does say that God is just in all of his ways. So now we've got another, as you said earlier, another contradiction. Like, how in the world? So if you do, like, if you can see the problems with the Bible and you're like, well, this doesn't seem to be adding up, but I still believe in a God. Don't you think it's probable that if a God exists, it's more likely to be a God not described in this book? Because how could somebody powerful enough and knowing enough create all of this, if that's what you believe happened, but then somehow shit to bed when it came to the afterlife?
Uh, and with that, I think you're asking something that could expose, let's say, cognitive dissonance,
Mhm.
where, let's say, if I try really hard to say, well, even though I think that does not work, if you want to describe that as loving, that's not loving in my eyes at all, not possible. Uh, when I say, but is it possible that God is actually like that? And I disagree with God because I'm messed up. That if I could see the big picture like God may, then I would see it as possibly the justice that it's referred to as. Even though, like, yeah, as I try to say that and describe it, I feel how it feels ridiculous to say maybe that is loving for that, like you said, age of account. Uh, a single sin is equal to basically endless sins, if not saved. Yeah, it doesn't work at all. And yet, when I try to say, well, then God must not be like that, there's some kind of what if He is kind of thing going on.
Sure. And
That's
so
really, yeah.
we can do a little more probing as well, because like this idea of hell that we get in the New Testament, you might think that, okay, well, that's just how the Bible God is. But that's actually not how the Bible God is. In fact, if you read the Old Testament, he doesn't threaten anybody with hell whatsoever. And
Right.
if you read the Jewish literature, they didn't like their concept of hell that gets fleshed out during the intertestamental period, like the Second Temple period. That hell is only temporary. It's a 12-month period max. So even like the most wicked person could go there and theoretically be out in like 12 months. This idea that God, like once you die, now you're just stuck forever, that's not even
Right.
part of Judaism. So the New Testament concept of hell is literally a departure from the Old Testament and from proper Judaism.
Which is very, very confusing because when I try to understand this and, like say going into a church for the first time when I'm like, maybe God's real and I want to give him a chance, that this information isn't, say, straightened out or very clear when I ask this. So I would think this maybe points to more of like the issue of the situation.
Yeah. And so let me put another thing, another like feather in your cap now that you're reading the
Sure.
Bible for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think for me, this was the thing that pushed me over when I was a deconstructing Christian. This is the thing that pushed me over the edge where I was like, oh, Christianity is just a load of bullshit.
Yeah,
I think
maybe.
like maybe the Abrahamic God exists, but it ain't Jesus. So you might be inclined to believe the hell teaching because it's in the New Testament, and you probably think the New Testament's important because that's the basis for Christianity. That's why you're a Christian, not a Jew. But if I told you
Right.
something, if I told you, listen, not only was Jesus a liar and a fraud, but he didn't fulfill a single messianic prophecy, not even one. If that claim were true, what would that mean for Christianity?
That would be more or less all that you need to know about, let's say, the scripture, or I suppose the New Testament. Basically, I would think then I could disregard more or less it entirely.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If Jesus didn't fulfill a damn prophecy, then we could pretty much care less about what he has to say. So his opinion on hell is now meaningless. Let's read a couple
'Cause,
prophecies
sure.
and see what we think about them. I'm going to go to Jeremiah 31 and I'm going to read like 15 through 17. And Jeremiah 31 is a pretty famous passage, but the reality is Jeremiah 31 is about the restoration of the Israelites after the Babylonian exile. So Jeremiah is writing basically as they're being carried off into exile. And he prophesied a couple chapters prior in chapter 25 that they would be gone for 70 years and then they would come back. This prophecy seems to be written about 605, 606 BCE. And this is what Jeremiah says. Jeremiah says, "Thus saith the Lord, a voice is heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rachel is weeping for her children. She refuses to be comforted for her children because they are no more. Thus says the Lord, keep your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for there is a reward for your work, says the Lord. They shall come back from the land of the enemy, and there is hope for your future, says the Lord. Your children shall come back to their own country." Now that seems pretty clear. Like you can read the entire chapter if you want a little more context, but there's nothing in what we just read that's unclear, right?
Yeah, I would think not.
Right. Now, it seems to be a prophecy for the Israelites being carried off into captivity and a promise that they're going to come back and they're going to be restored to their land. But if you read the book of Matthew, Matthew says when Herod executed all the infants in and around Bethlehem because he was afraid of Jesus, this is what Matthew says. Matthew says, "Then what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing in loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more." But Matthew can't be serious thinking that the death of the babies in Bethlehem is a fulfillment of Jeremiah 31, because we just read Jeremiah 31. It has nothing to do with a bunch of babies dying in Bethlehem. It's not even remotely close.
And this is what's very confusing is so the certainty that people will tell me otherwise, that certainty being built maybe off of what they've been told, that is it just, would you think this is an IQ thing where somebody can read it just as you did and not be able to pick up the contradiction or the issue, as you put it?
Well, to me, I think it's an honesty thing. So if you ask the average Christian, it's not that they're being dishonest. Typically, they don't know any better. Like they've read the New Testament and they've read the fulfilled prophecy and they never went back to the Old Testament to see what's actually being said. They're just like, oh, well, Matthew said he fulfilled a prophecy, so he did, right? So for a lot of Christians, it's just a lack of study. But there are pastors and professors and whatnot that do know about this problem. They know that Jesus didn't actually fulfill any prophecies. So they have to invent like new types of prophecies. They'll say, well, like it was a typological prophecy. Jesus did something that was similar to something that happened prior. So it's a foreshadowing. But listen, that's all bullshit. The
second fulfillment sometimes,
a dual fulfillment. Okay. Except the second one's completely divorced from the context. But if
very
like
bizarre.
But that's the same justification that Mormons give for Joseph Smith. So Joseph Smith fulfilled a bunch of prophecies, but only if you believe in like third fulfillments, second fulfillments, and typologies. And Christians don't accept it for Joseph Smith, so why are they accepting it with Jesus?
That's such a good question. And I would think that if we're being honest, as in what we care about is truth, that if this doesn't look good, or if this is a point where it makes it makes the word of God to be maybe not the word of God, that we would be bringing this up to the forefront and say, hey, look at this. This makes it seem like it's less likely, but look at this, makes it more likely. Instead of hiding it or trying to pretend they didn't know, or I don't know because that's very confusing when I try to find out, and that's the response is they don't seem to know about this, but explain it in another way that kind of makes it work if you're thinking of God in a certain way.
Right. Yeah. So I don't think most Christians that are really studying the Bible, I don't think most of them are doing it honestly. And I think a lot of them are engaging in apologetics rather than actual scholarship. So a Bible scholar reads the Bible and says, okay, what's happening here? Like who's speaking? Who are they speaking to? What's the intention of the message? But apologetics is different. Apologetics says, okay, I don't care what this passage says. I need to bend the words so that it doesn't mess up what my currently held beliefs. And so,
Yeah, that's the part that gets me the most
Mhm.
is let's say if it doesn't, so suppose, how you thought God was, and then you come across information that suggests something else, that you wouldn't kind of be glad to bring it out because, you're not looking to find out if you're right about what you suppose, but just what's actually true.
Right.
I don't understand how that could be the case. Like, say, when I've listened to sometimes people that won't give a clean and clear yes or no, but they want to explain why the yes or no is a yes or no. That we wouldn't discuss, like, yeah, why that hurts the case for the scriptures or whatever it might be in our opinion.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of problems. I don't know, but Brandon, I think the questions that you're having are normal ones, and you have to kind of marinate with them for a while. Like I was finding a lot of these issues when I was reading the Bible when I was a younger Christian, and I was really slow to react. It took me a long time to come to the conclusion that the Bible is just not true. But there's nothing wrong with taking your time and diving deep into each topic and verifying for yourself. And I think, the more you study and the less convinced you are that this thing is true, the less you're going to worry about hell. Because you only worry about hell because there's a small, tiny fraction of a part of you that thinks it could be real. But once you've studied enough and you've eliminated the idea that this thing is real, you're not going to worry about hell at all. I don't worry about hell one day.
But yeah, it definitely is only hanging around in my mind because people have told me about it and
Mhm.
because of the, say, honest search for God that I've been in sermons where it's kind of this stuff works really deeply, where, at a point I was really grateful for being able to, like, say, I'm gonna stop doubting and really put some faith into this God. And then there's a time where I'm thinking, wow, I can't believe that I almost missed out on this because otherwise I would have been just on my way to hell and just having no clue. And then it's kind of like, after kind of studying this stuff, like what I'm trying to put my faith into, then I kind of come into all this questioning. And
Mhm.
so now it's almost like I'm working my way out of all that, like, instead of, sorry, what I'm calling gratitude at one point, and now I'm like, wow, I really kind of put that deep into my mind in a way that's like, I'm not sure what to do about that. But I guess that's what we're doing here is just talking it out and using all the tools we have to make sense of, like, what's real and what's true. And um, I'm wondering, is there is it helpful at all? Because I did have kind of a stance that it might be not worth much or maybe not worth anything, but from the stance of maybe God isn't only imaginary.
I don't know what you mean.
Right. So, like, the reason I wanted to come through and talk with you was the concept that God has maybe more of an impact than, say, in somebody's imagination, as in, say, it being the principal reason why people do certain behaviors, and therefore not only in the imagination, but also in the real world, why people do what they do sometimes.
Well, I think the belief in God affects people's behaviors, but I
Yeah.
could easily believe in the tooth fairy, and that would affect my behavior. But I don't think that would make the tooth fairy real, right?
Not necessarily real. Definitely want to say no, not real. And I guess that's why maybe the idea that it's not just in your imagination might not hold any weight. But that is the stance, because uh, I feel like there's something great about this idea that there might be something greater or more, say, from maybe the stance of things are chemistry, if you really want to look at the fundamentals, that uh, even calling some of this chemistry like a portion, like certain behaviors and maybe like mystery, calling that God might have something to it, like some kind of use or something, utility.
Well, I do believe that sometimes things that don't exist have utility. For
Oh, okay.
example, we studied the placebo effect for many years, and we
Right,
know
right.
for sure, like if you tell an athlete or a group of athletes that they're going to be getting PEDs, they'll perform better whether they got those PEDs or not. So the
So
placebo
weird.
effect is pretty wild. That being said, I think the question we have is like, yes, there are placebo effects that are on the spiritual side of things. I think I would ask, are the perceived benefits of that placebo effect, do they outweigh the negatives? And I don't think they do.
Right, right. Yeah, I I would agree. Even though I haven't, like, I don't have a bunch of data to support this. My experience personally, where like say the work I had to do to say like shun my own thinking and work through the stuff that I was finding in scriptures, and then the issues where I couldn't get answers about those issues. The that process was not good at all for my mental health and whatnot. You know.
Yeah, I get that. Well, so Brandon, are you on Discord?
No, no,
You
I'm
should.
not sure what that is. Sorry.
It's like an offline. It's a it's a platform for community and chat. We have a pretty
Okay.
big Discord. I think we're about to hit 4,000 here. People that are talking about these topics, having dialogue about these topics. A lot of people smarter than me in there as well. If you're
Oh no.
interested in dialoguing with some people offline about these topics, I would definitely recommend joining the Discord. But I've got to move on to our next guest and get a debate started up.
All right, sounds great. I do appreciate what you do. Makes things make a lot more sense sometimes. Just trying to say thanks. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming on, Brandon, and take your time working through these problems. You don't have to rush yourself through it. Just read it, think about it, marinate on it, and then try to come to logical conclusions.
I agree. As you put it, what do the words mean? Words mean words, right?
Right? Yep. All
All right. Thank you. Thank you
right.
very
Cheers.
much.
Have a good one. W. Brandon, it's hard deconstructing. It's not fun. It's quite lonely. Let me grab a couple of super chats. We'll get to our next guest already. Carnage Asada, big W for the $5 super chat. Thank you so much. This just popped in and caught a glimpse of the experimental muted stream. Such a vibe. 10 out of 10. Ambiance, no notes. Yeah, the mute stream is wild. Oh man, what I don't know. I have a vision of a future where we're not going to have all of these technological glitches, but I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Hanging with Jesus, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. It says, did the Hebrew Bible laws extend to Christians? What are some resources or scripture to follow history and development of sin over time? Well, okay, I don't know what sin over time means, but as for the laws, I actually have a document. If you message me on Discord, I can send you the document that gives you all the Bible verses you need to know about who the law applies to and why it applies to them. I put it together probably a year and a half ago now. That being said, this general idea that the law was permanent, not temporary, is you can just read the first 12 chapters of Deuteronomy, and it's very clear. God says the law is forever. God said it's not too hard for you. In fact, in Deuteronomy 30, when it talks about the new era, where you'll receive your heart of flesh, to replace your heart of stone, or you'll get the circumcision of the flesh in Deuteronomy 30. This is the New Testament era, the New Covenant era. It includes following the laws. So if God says, "Hey, at this time I will give you'll get circumcised in the heart, not the flesh, and then you're going to follow my laws, like these laws in the Torah," it can only mean one thing. Sasha, thank you so much for the $20 super that, my friend. Big W says, currently talking my sister through a breakup from her Muslim ex who broke up with her after 3 years because she wouldn't convert to his gross religion. She's heartbroken, but I'm so relieved. Hail, Doug, and you rock. Well, thank you so much, Sasha. And trust me, she dodged a BULET, that's for sure. She does not want to marry into that religion. Women are property in that religion. I know there are sects of Islam that are progressive. I know they exist, but they're not common. I wouldn't want someone married into it. Marcus, thank you for the $3 super chat. I appreciate that, friend. And Spider, thank you for the $2 super chat or $20 SEK. Says, does God rely on sinful people to spread the word? I think it's because it's all he has. Because he doesn't have anything else to work with, right? Or because he doesn't exist and it's made up by these same men. Pat, thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, I remember being in Brandon's shoes before, unplugging myself from the crazy world of Christian belief. It was tough, but was a good decision. So I'm with you, Pat. I think a lot of us went through it the same way. We were in his shoes. It's a long, difficult process, but hoping the best for him. You just have to take your time and work through it honestly. Welcome to the Kraken Crew Elite, Randy. And also, Randy, thank you for gifting out 10 DZ memberships. Thank you so much. A big W, Randy. That's very generous. And just 3 more super chats here. Joe L, thank you for the $10 super chat. Says, who was there to witness God create the world and write down all the things he said to Adam and Eve? And what language was being spoken in the garden? So, Joel, these are good questions. Most Christians would say that, well, God dictated it to Moses, which is weird because if you read the Torah that was supposedly dictated to Moses is full of contradictions. So it's weird that God would dictate a bunch of contradictions to Moses. But that's the answer. That's what they'll tell you, Joel. It's a good question, though. And 904, thank you for the 1999 super chat, says, as a non-dual process theologian demon, I have such respect for you and everything you are doing. Well, thank you so much, 904. Or 940 says, rock hard for Doug. May the foundation of substantiation grant it you peace. Amazing work with the words 9040. Amazing work. And listen, you've got a demon, so you've had to put together your share of sermons. You should be a pretty good wordsmith. If I know anything about giving sermons, is that if you can do some wordsmithing, you can get some extra props. You get bonus points. Malcolm, thank you for the $10 super chat. It says, we all know words don't mean words, but there's no single word that never means what it means more than context. You mean the time, place, and situation of the verse, and they just mean bias. Yeah, basically. You nailed it on the head. When you're looking at context, you need to know who said it, what time period they said it, who they said it to, what are the texts that are related to it, right? If he's speaking something, is that something related to something that he said prior? Is it related to something that he or she said at a different time period? Like, these are all contextual questions that Christians just gloss over. Christians treat context like context is just that little bit. Like, there's more rope that I can use to hang myself with, as they say. They think that if you just add more to what you're reading, then there's more words to twist around. But then, if you're with someone who's actually read the book, then you're like, well, no, your context isn't fixing it. You're just working with more words that you think are elastic. That's all. So we've got with us now Johnny. Welcome in, Johnny. Johnny, your microphone's muted, Johnny.
Hello, mate.
There you go. Welcome in, Johnny.
Yeah, sorry about that. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you. Johnny, are you at least 18 and are you a believer in some kind of a God?
Actually, we spoke last Wednesday.
Okay.
And yeah, I told you that I am in between, and well, I proceeded to describe somewhat of an objective morality. And we, I don't know if you remember, but we came to discuss about pain, and I was saying that pain is a signal for me that morality is objective. It was a short discussion because it was late in the UK.
Right.
So
did you want to pick up where we left off, or did you have a different argument?
You know what? I really want to continue this discussion because and it might be a little bit off topic, but I'm really interested in the discussion that we had about pain and about morality. But obviously, with your permission, we can speak about this because I don't want to be off topic. Obviously, the platform is about people that call and argue for God.
So, Johnny, I forget. Are you a believer in God or not?
I don't think I can call myself a believer now. But
Okay,
I'm
so we're
inclining
just talking
towards
to
that
believers.
direction.
We're just talking to believers.
Yeah. Well,
sorry, bud.
Yeah, definitely. I should discuss about this with somebody else about the moral objectivity.
Yeah, call in on Ian's show. He'll talk to you for 3 hours on moral objectivity.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Cheers, buddy.
So-
Have a good one.
Bye.
Definitely not interested in a conversation on objective morals from an atheist worldview. Ms. Michelle, thank you for the hand hearts. Thank you so much. And username taken, thank you for gifting out a sub on TikTok. And also Indian Throne, thank you for subbing for 3 months. And Bad Religion, thank you so much for the hand hearts on TikTok. I really appreciate that, friends. All right, we're going to get our next guest up in here then. It looks like we've got people in our YouTube queue and our TikTok queue. Damo, thank you for the $10 super chat, buddy. He says, finally able to catch you live, listening to you at work, which always makes the day more enjoyable. Well, listen, I really appreciate that you're chilling at work, watching the stream. And speaking of someone who I think is chilling at work, watching the stream, welcome in, Sarah.
Hello.
Great to see you.
How's it going?
Pretty well, just doing some daytime stream.
Nice, I like it.
We're going to bring in Creed. I don't know if you've met Creed yet.
I feel like I have.
Creed's actually pretty nice.
Hello, Justin. I'm not to the date for real this time.
Welcome back, Creed.
Hello.
Well, I mean, Creed, you've been pleasant the last 15 times you were here. So I assume you'll be...
Oh, I'm sorry, Lee.
No, you're fine.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm actually here. I'm actually... Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, you're still, it sounds like you're deconstructing if I was going to pinpoint your position, right?
No, I'm not a Christian.
You're
I
a theist, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, Christian.
I'm sorry, what?
Christian.
You are a Christian.
Yes.
Okay. And what I don't know what we talked about last time, but we can start fresh. So you are a believer, you're a Christian. So what's your most convincing evidence or argument for Christianity being true?
Well,
or the God.
Christianity. Okay. Well, I would say that the first argument had that Christianity was pretty radical for its time. Like its beliefs were like not like anything else of the time. Like the ideas of the equality and like respect for your fellow man. Like the way Christianity presents it compared to the other gods and belief systems is like so different. Like most of the other gods were like violent and wrathful creatures that Yahweh is a god.
I mean, like Yahweh? Jesus is Yahweh. That means he's violent and wrathful.
Well, he tells you to love your neighbor as yourself. And like, sure, like, yeah, like hell, it sounds scary, but for bad people who choose not to love God.
Well, let's just pause for a second, right? Because Yahweh was the one that said to love your neighbor as yourself, but Yahweh was the wrathful, violent guy, right? So it seems like Jesus is just Yahweh 2.0.
No, he's not Yahweh 2.0. He's God.
Right, which is Yahweh.
Yes.
Okay. So if Jesus is Yahweh, then he is God. But okay, so on to the topic of hell, since you brought it up, right? The people go to hell. Why does anyone go to hell, actually?
Well, it says in scripture that God originally made it for, like the fallen angels, but whenever an entity fell, God had to start using it for the wicked humans.
Sure. Matthew 25 says that, right? So when God created hell, did he know humans would go there?
Well, he was still giving us a choice, but most likely you could see the future, yes.
Okay, so God did know that humans would go there when he created it. Did he have to create it?
Well, the angels are becoming evil. I don't think he wanted to keep the evilness in heaven with them.
Well, he could just execute the angels. Like, he doesn't have to keep the angels alive.
The God doesn't want to kill. God doesn't kill people. He doesn't kill people.
God doesn't kill people? Have you read the book?
Well, not. No. I mean their soul. I mean their soul forever. No. I mean their soul. God did not destroy people's souls.
But he could.
He may like he could, that he does it. He shows you mercy in that regard.
Well, not mercy. Like the angels that are locked up in darkness are going to be executed, don't you think?
Oh, they're gonna go to hell. I say hell forever. Isn't it like a prison?
Well, I think it depends on what you think about hell. But what I'm saying is the angels that are currently locked up, according to Second Peter and Jude, right? When they get
Yes.
judged by God, I assume they're going to be executed, right? Because both death and Hades are going to be thrown into the lake of fire and theoretically be no more. And we can't imagine that God's going to let them into heaven, right?
Well, no, they're not gonna go to heaven.
Okay. So what I suspect then is that the angels that are currently awaiting judgment they're going to be executed. They're going to be toast, right?
Well, they're gonna go to hell for because God made hell for the people, the angels that had turned wicked against him.
Well,
So I don't think they're gonna be.
maybe I should start with a clarifying question. Do you believe in annihilation or not?
No, I do not believe in annihilation.
Okay, we can start on the same foot then. Okay, so if you don't believe in annihilation, then you just believe that they're going to stay in hell forever.
Yeah, that's the way it's always been taught. Like
Okay.
Church of Christ teaches that.
Can I ask another clarifying question?
Sure.
You've said that hell is for the bad people and where like wicked people go. So is heaven then for good people and bad people go to hell?
Well, whenever you are baptized in Jesus Christ, your sins are washed away. So it means like you're now pure in God's sight, and He'll let you into heaven.
Okay, so hell is a punishment for being bad.
Yes, for disobeying God. Yes.
Okay, or is it a punishment for not believing in God?
Well, it's a bit complicated. It can be all the above.
Okay, so in God's eyes, good people go to heaven and bad people go to hell.
Yes, that's what He seems to believe in the Bible.
Okay, thank you.
Let me give you I'm going to give you a scenario. I want your analyzation of it, okay? Let's imagine for a second. Do you believe in the age of accountability? Like, do you believe that like 10-year-olds are going to hell because they disobeyed their parents? Or do you believe that like at some point they become accountable for their deeds, but not as a child?
So yes, yes. Like I do believe in the edge of accountability. I don't think God sends in like an innocent to hell. No, it's just not. It's not reasonable.
Okay.
They don't have the mental capacity.
Okay, let's assume for the sake of argument that the age of accountability is 13, right? You turn 13, you're now accountable. Now, I'm sure we all know that's an unrealistic gradation, but that's what we're going to have for now. So if somebody two people, right? Creed number 1 and creed number 2 just turned 13. It's been 2 days. You've been 13 for 2 days. Creed number 1 sins almost immediately by lying to his mom about something. He stole something from mom's purse and then covered it up. Okay. Now let's imagine for a second that creed number 2 committed no sins, right? It's been 2 days. Creed number 2 hasn't committed any sins yet. Still completely sin-free. Now, let's imagine that on day number 3, Creed 1 and Creed 2 both go to church. Creed 1, the lying stealer, they decide that they actually do believe in Jesus and they want forgiveness of their sins. Creed number 2 goes to church and is like, well, this doesn't make any sense. I don't believe in this nonsense. On day number 4, they're both dead. They got into an unfortunate car accident. Which one of them is heaven and which one of them is in hell?
Well, that's a good question. And so, at least what I believe in is that to get into the kingdom of heaven, you need to be like baptized, like full immersion baptism. And if creed number 2, who decided to change his ways?
Well, he's
Which
dead.
one changed their ways?
Well, creed number 2
Another-
hasn't sinned.
Which one is the one that decided to give their lives to Christ? Which one is it?
Creed number 1.
Okay, so creed number 1, he got baptized and confessed Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. Then his salvation should be intact. He should be going to heaven if he did not walk away from the faith.
Okay.
Creed number 1, creed number 2 would probably not be in heaven because they didn't set God as their Lord and Savior.
That's right. Okay. Now, creed number 2 hadn't committed any sins yet.
Oh, we all sin in the day. They don't even realize it.
No. In the analogy, creed number 2 hasn't committed any sins yet. It's only been accountable for sin for 2 days, right? And in those 2 days, creed number 2 didn't do anything wrong, didn't lie, didn't steal, didn't do any sins. The only thing that he did was exist for another 3 days, heard about Jesus, said, "Yeah, I don't think that's silly," and then he died, right? But in your worldview, even though creed number 2 hadn't committed any sins, the fact that he just didn't believe in Jesus means he's going to hell, right?
Well, you, you have to understand that, we all have kind of inherited, like, ever since the fall of man happened in the garden, we all have inherited this nature that makes us like unpleasant in the eyes of God. And back in the day, did you're trying to say?
So then God punishes you for things that are out of your control.
Well, you make a choice. Creed one had a choice. Creed two had a choice to make and didn't make the right choice.
Okay, so
It's just
God will punish a 13-year-old for hearing a story and thinking that the story is nonsense, even though that child hasn't committed a sin.
well, that's a very hard question to answer you for some reasons, and the reason why I say that is because I I never really thought the accountability, at least what I've been taught, is more like 14 to 18. It's not really
Well,
13. So
I don't know if the age is important. What's important is showing that hell is not like a punishment for bad deeds. The only thing hell is there for is to punish people who don't believe in Jesus, because you can be without the bad deeds, die, and still end up there, even though you didn't do any bad deeds. So hell has nothing to do with being bad. It has everything to do with just being punished for not loving God.
well, that's true. Why wouldn't you want to love God? God's the most pure thing in the world. He's like the creator of all of us. Like he's given you the choice to accept salvation and the choice to take it or not take it.
But can you love something if you don't believe it exists?
Know that there's all this evidence around you that God exists. Like
Oh, I
the
don't think
Bible has
so.
all these. The Bible has all these eyewitness testimonies in it, from like First Corinthians, Second Corinthians, and Acts, and all these different books. Like they show these miracles. For example, like today, like someone speaks in tongues. Obviously, it's bull crap because you have to have an interpreter to interpret it. But back in the day, people actually understood the language they were talking in, and there was no reason for that. And it was all written down too.
Right, but you understand that these are stories. There's no way to validate whether or not these stories are true, and they read like other mythologies.
Look at the example that like the Christianity sounds similar to another mythology.
Yeah, I mean, you can literally just write, right. I mean, you can literally read like the annals. Like if you read the annals, or perhaps Life of the 12 Caesars by Tacitus, that's actually a really good analogy. So if you read Life of the 12 Caesars by Tacitus, he kind of gives biographies of the 12 Caesars, and they read a lot like the Gospels. So and so did this, and then they did that. But it's also full of miracles. Like if you read Tacitus, there's a bunch of miracle claims and a bunch of divinity claims within the book, right? So I'm reading Tacitus. I'm like, shit. Like, I do believe that the Caesars existed. I really do. Do I believe that one of them was an ancestor of Hercules? No. Do I believe that one of them was descended from Jupiter? No, of course not. And I would read the biographies of Jesus, if you will call them that, like the Gospels. I'd read them the same way. I was like, well, this sounds like, first century biographical mythology.
I know that there's not. I know that nobody that didn't stick around. Like Christianity stuck around for so long to really like it's clearly changing people's lives. Unlike that story that you just told me about that people don't really believe in because it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, neither does Christianity, right? So, and something having sticking around power doesn't make it true. Like Islam not only is still sticking around, but it's going to be larger than Christianity soon. So
Yes, the Christian.
Go ahead.
Yes, that Islam borrows a lot of its central ideas from Christianity
Like
and
what?
Judaism. Like it acknowledges certain Christian figures like Abraham, I believe, right, as like a figure in the Torah in the Quran,
Well, they're
and
robbing from
like
Judaism. They're definitely robbing from Judaism. I don't think they're robbing from Christianity. In the Mormon faith, Jesus wasn't even crucified. He didn't even die.
Well, Mormonism is like I'm not afraid to say this. Mormonism is a cult.
Did I
It's
say
just a flat out
Mormon?
cult.
I meant to say Islam. In Islam,
Yeah.
sorry,
Oh,
we're talking about Islam. In Islam, Jesus didn't even die.
oh yeah, that's true. It's just trying to mock Christianity. That I don't want to get into that because I'm kind of afraid of Islam. So
Well, I don't think they're mocking Christianity. I think that the founder of Islam probably didn't believe Christianity was true and wanted to start his own religion that was based on an older religion to give it some kind of merit, right? But that being said, I don't think that fixes the problems that we have. For example, we're still talking about the topic of hell, and I can't figure out how hell is a just punishment for anyone, because the Creed 2.0, 13-year-old Creed who hadn't committed a sin, he's going to get the same punishment as like Joseph Stalin or Hitler or Pol Pot. Like, they're all going to get the same punishment. I don't see how that's justified.
Well, there are certain levels in hell. Like, this is really bad beliefs that like all sin is equal, and it's not really true.
There are levels in hell. Can you expound on that? Maybe put a Bible verse to it.
Well, I mean, there's like a verse that talks about how, like, say someone knows the gospel and they decide to go off and sin, God will punish that person harsher than it was someone who did not know the gospel and sinned.
With what?
Is everyone in hell, do they suffer for eternity?
Yes, I believe so.
That all seems like equally bad.
Well, there are these certain levels of excruciating pain for someone. Like, one person may be, like an R-word person, or like that. You know what R-word I'm talking about? Like a greatist. One person may be like a serial killer. Another person may just be like a petty robber. Like, they're not all going to be tortured the same amount.
So
What-
wait, I'm sorry. Are there good amounts of torture, and like, is there okay amounts of suffering?
I mean, no. I mean, these people had every choice to accept God as their Lord and Savior, and they didn't do
Wait,
that.
hold on. So is everyone getting the same punishment or not? Like, you've said that everyone is suffering for eternity, right?
Mhm.
So you're saying it's different because some people are suffering even worse, extra special, horrible torture versus some people are just getting medium torture?
That's what we're trying to figure
Well,
out.
we don't all know that for sure. We don't all know for sure, but it appears that all sin is punished, that the way God will punish it is a bit more harsh. Like, there's a verse, like, you know what verse it is, that it talks about how someone knows the gospel and chooses to sin, that God will punish them harsher than someone who's just unwillingly sinning without knowing the gospel. I don't know what verse that is.
No,
So in your view, if someone does not know the gospel and then they died not knowing the gospel at all, they still go to hell.
Well, it's up to God to decide. God can God can save anyone He wants to save. And
So if God can save anyone he wants to save, that means they're just people he's like, you know what, I could save you, but nah, I'm not gonna.
yes, but see, God knows everyone's hearts. He knows their heart, what their intentions were in life. What they really
Okay,
sought.
so are you going to heaven or hell based on your heart or based on whether you believe and accept Jesus?
If you believe in accept Jesus, because He has to be judged for decisions you make in life.
So then even if God is judging on your good heart and yet you don't believe in Jesus, where do you go?
Well, I think God would probably show you mercy because you really had no clue who Jesus was. You didn't choose to willingly accept Him. You didn't have the choice to make.
Okay, so people who don't believe in God, they don't have a choice to make, and so they get to go to heaven if they're good people.
shit, Sarah, we're going to
I
heaven.
would.
Well, he probably thinks I'm a bad person, let's be honest.
I don't think you're a bad person. I don't think there really are any like good people, like not compared to God. Like, they all fall short.
Well,
They can all
wait, but
just.
so if there's no good people, then who in your analogy is going to heaven? Like, let's say there's a person who has never heard the gospel, they don't know Jesus, they never had that choice, and I think they're a good person. So do they go to heaven, or are you saying, nope, even if you've never heard Jesus, you're default a bad person, and so you go to hell?
I would say that you would. They probably go to heaven if they didn't know who Jesus was.
Okay, so anyone who is so someone could be good enough then to go to heaven.
Well, there seems that way. Noah was seen as righteous by God. Like, he
Okay,
didn't
so
really
some people are good enough for heaven then.
And Job, yeah.
Sounds like,
Okay.
if I'm hearing this correctly, Sarah, the best thing we can do is make sure nobody hears about Jesus. We got to take that clown, hide him under a bushel basket, make sure no one ever sees him again, because that seems to be the tipping point that's sending people to hell, is rejecting Jesus.
Well, that would be a sin. Like you'd be punished for that because you're willingly withholding the good news from
No,
people.
it's not the good news, it's bad news. It's only bad news, because as soon as you hear about Jesus, now you're liable to hell. Without Jesus, you're just judged based on whether or not you were a good person or a bad person, which I actually think is fair.
Well, think that Christianity teaches you how to do certain things right, like how to have good relationships with people, and like other religions really just don't do that for you.
Well, that's not true.
What? Wait, do you think people don't know how to be like good, have good relationships without Christianity?
Well, I would say there's a lot of truth to that. Like how like a lot of people who don't like Christianity look like they're committing sins, like cheating on people, and they're not like keeping like not staying married, they're getting divorced and due to like
Wait, I'm sorry. You really should look up the statistics on divorce and infidelity before you make a claim like that.
You know, the divorce rate in the church is the same as outside of the church, right?
I've heard that before.
So it's not the Christianity. Christians behave in relationships exactly the way that everyone else does.
No, that God gives a blueprint, like Ephesians 5 for marriage.
Yeah, the man is on top, the woman is next, right? You believe that women are not as equal as men, most likely.
No, it's actually a spiritual chain of command. Like First Corinthians like 11 talks about the spiritual chain of command. Like the head of Christ is God, the head of Nan is one, head of woman is Nan.
Yeah.
Spiritual chain of command.
Yeah, it says that man was created in the image of God and woman was created in the image of man. Or some translations will say glory, but it's roughly the same thing, right? So you believe that from a status point of view, women are higher status than, or men are higher status than women?
They're spiritual leaders, they're not higher status. Like Galatians 3:28 talks about there's no male or female in Christ, no slave or free.
Right, but you agree that men and women exist?
Well, yes, of course. That's a ridiculous question.
You agree that one of them within the society we live in, not in Christ, but in the real world, the world we live in, that they are not equal?
Well, sadly, it's just been that way throughout history because in the fall, God says one of the curses is that men are going to rule over women due to like them taking dominance, like due to the fall.
It doesn't say anything about dominance. It says that men will dominate over women in Genesis 3:16. It says your desire will be for your husband, but he will rule over you.
Well, yes, and so that was a fair punishment because she was the one she sinned first. Adam did sin as well.
Wait, I'm sorry. I just want to clarify here. So is man ruling over women, is that a punishment or is that supposed to be a blueprint for a good, healthy relationship?
God is adjusting like, for example, when God first.
Which one? You got to pick one of them.
I'm actually being serious. When God first made the world, they were like, they were naked and together and they're not ashamed, Genesis chapter 2. And then once the fall happens in Genesis chapter 3, one of the curses of that relationships are no longer going to have balance to them. And so due to the imbalance in our power dynamics, God had to adjust the way relationships work under sin. So we are supposed to treat everyone equally as we would like our neighbor.
Okay, I don't know if that answers Sarah's question. Did you hear Sarah's question?
What was her question?
So you just said that in Genesis, Eve is punished for her sin by having the man have dominance over her. So that is a punishment. But then separately, you said that this relationship where a man has spiritual leadership over a woman is instead a blueprint for good relationships. But these two things cannot coexist. If Eve is being punished, that is not a healthy, good relationship. It's either a good relationship or it's a punishment, but it cannot be both.
Well, God didn't retract the curses. Like women still have pain in childbirth today, so He's not going to take away all the curses. Like the world's still fallen.
Right. So it's a punishment, not a blueprint for a healthy relationship.
Ephesians 5 is a healthy blueprint for the fallen world that we live in.
We're in
today.
Genesis 3.
No, it's a punishment.
Okay.
They're being punished. So this unequal dynamic is a punishment, which means this isn't something we should look to as a blueprint for a healthy relationship. This is God punishing women.
There's some truth in that. I think this is punishment. It says it right here in Genesis. I will greatly multiply your pain and child.
Mm-hmm. We lost you, Creed. We lost your audio. Where'd you go?
And the Bible actually follows this up later on.
Yeah, in 1 Timothy chapter 2.
Huh?
In 1 Timothy chapter 2, it follows it up, right? It says, also women should dress themselves moderate in clothing, so on and so forth. And he says, I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. She is to keep silent, for Adam was formed first and then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet she will be saved through childbearing, provided they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control. So according to Paul, like, women's role in society, being subservient to men, is a result of what happened in the garden, right?
Yes, that's where the viewpoint comes from. Paul seems to be believing that those rules are still
Okay.
intact to this day.
Then to Sarah's point, the point that Sarah is making is that the Bible doesn't give you a blueprint for marriage, because the blueprint you're referring to is actually a punishment, not a blueprint.
Well, God calls all things to work for the good, and he's using the fallen world and turning it. But this is
Okay,
genuine.
so just to clarify, Creed, your original argument is that the Bible is true because it's giving us something different and we need it and it's so helpful and healthy. And one of your examples was that the Bible gives you a blueprint for a healthy relationship. But as we've seen, that's actually not the case. The relationship the Bible is outlining is actually women being punished for Eve's choice.
Yes, but he still gave women equal roles. It says, Paul talks about women's ultimate goal is like childbirth, like motherhood.
Equal
So just to
roles.
clarify again, the Bible is not giving us something new and different and more progressive. It's just showing you the effects of God continuing to punish women.
Oh, God, God had just his design after sin happened.
So
In
yes,
Ephesians
okay,
5 is
right.
God giving a relationship advice in a fallen world before things are made perfect. Like Revelation says, he will wipe away every single tear in your eye and like everything they made right.
I
So God,
understand, but again, your argument was that it's different and this is how people should model relationships, and that actually is incorrect.
well, do you not think Ephesians 5 is a healthy relationship?
No.
Why? For what reasons do you think that?
I'm sorry, Justin, you can go ahead.
Because men and women are equals and we shouldn't have slaves in our household.
But she's not called a slave, sir. She's just said that to love the church.
Slaves. There are slaves mentioned in Ephesians 5 and 6.
Yeah, season 6, yes, not season 5.
The household code in the time of Paul included husband, wife, children, slave. That was the order.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that. I think all people are created equal. I think children are only subservient to their parents because it's required for their well-being until they come to an age of maturity. And I think in no way ever should women have to be ruled over or subservient to men.
Well, there needs to be a head of the household. There needs to be
Why?
somebody that can pull the trigger.
Why?
Because it's just hard to two people working together just doesn't work as well.
I think it works great.
There's bias. Really? For what reason do you think? It seems like what happens today is that one sex takes too much power over the other and they end up getting a divorce. It seems like to me.
That's not the
Wait,
case.
did you just say because one sex takes power over the other, then they get a divorce?
No, I'm saying that it seems that today people don't have respect for each other anymore. And it says right here that nevertheless, each individual among you is also to love his own wife, even as himself, and the wife must see it that to it she respects her husband. She's not a slave to her husband. She just respects his leadership.
You're actually describing equality. Like, if people respect each other, no one is the ruler. That is equality.
Right.
There
Like,
needs to be
if I respect my mate, that means I value their opinion just as much as my own.
True.
So you don't have to
True.
fight. You don't need a person to pull the trigger and say, well, I wear the pants in this family. I'll make the final decision. You don't need anything like that. And I think the other thing I would add is, even if you do believe that you need that, who the hell, why does it always have to be a man? Why can't there be relationships where women do that?
Well, women are allowed to make decisions for the household. There's not like the major ones.
No,
Like, let's
why
say
can't
like
she lead the
moving,
household?
because this is not how God designed it.
Right. So again, it's a punishment. It's not a blueprint. Because we know in the real world that women are leaders, and they're damn good leaders, and they can lead a household. In fact, women do more work in the household than men. They work jobs, and they typically take care of the household and the kids.
Well, it's not really how God designed it. It's just that today people sadly just do not commit to relationships in the way they should be committing to relationships.
Okay, so
And
then the Bible doesn't give you a blueprint. It gives you the blueprint for a punishment. So the blueprint laid out by the Bible is a punishment, not a desirable set of affairs.
well, for the world that we live in, this is a desirable set of affairs, sir.
Why?
Because, like, think about this.
I don't
There's
desire
a lot
it
of
at
this.
all, by the way.
You don't desire to lead a household.
No, I would desire to be with somebody who is an equal with me in that household, and we make decisions together.
I know that Paul kind of talks about this in 1 Timothy 2. Like you said, he kind of seems to suggest that when a woman's like in the leadership, like spiritual leadership role, it seems to be bad. I can kind of
Yeah,
confused by that passage
yeah, it does
myself,
seem to be bad. I know.
but that's because God designed it a certain way, and then he looks into his instructions. Like,
He designed us what way?
well, he designed for the man to lead and for the woman to be she's called a helper in Genesis. Like,
So,
like it's.
so then it's not a punishment then. If God designed it, then it's not a punishment anymore.
Well, God used the punishment that he gave to her to kind of cook something good out of it, like a loving relationship. God's redefining what it used to be. For example, it's telling the husband to love his wife the way God loves the church. It's revolutionary, sir. It's
It's
something you hear
certainly
all the
not
time.
revolutionary in the least.
Also,
Loving your wife isn't a new concept. I mean, the Greeks and the Romans wrote about it. Like, you can't be under the opinion that men and women didn't have loving relationships prior to Jesus.
it's true. And I think all throughout the Old Testament, there are loving relationships that God's getting his way to do it. How to structure a family unit in this world, live into a new covenant.
But it's a punishment. It's not a way to structure your family unit if it's a punishment, right? So what you're suggesting is like the blueprint we have is only a punishment, not an actual blueprint. It's not God's ultimate desire, is what you're saying. Does God
Yes.
want men to lead women and to be women to be subservient to them, or is that just how things are because of the fall?
Well, it's like I think it's a good combination of both. God is like, God's not going to retract the curse he made for all humanity. Then he wants them to lead them like, Christ did. And that is not selfishly, that is not controlling, that is gentle, kind, always making sure that they feel valued and loved like God does his church.
Also, just pay attention. The state of affairs where women are subservient to men, right? Is that what God wants? Like, is that his goal, or is that plan B?
It seems to have been plan D for this fallen world.
Okay, now where does God state what plan A is?
Well, in the garden, he makes her from his rib, clearly implying equal partnership.
That's not what
How
a
is that
rib.
equal?
It's not equal at all. If she was equal, she would have been created the same way Adam was created.
Well, it ties back to what Paul is saying in 1 Corinthians 11, nothing the glory of man. Like she was made from man.
Right.
And
Right.
So even from the beginning, we see that not only was woman not created as an equal to men, but she got downgraded. She was already not equal. She was just a helper. And then she got downgraded from helper to semi-slave.
oh, sir, she's not a slave. You don't treat your slave. You don't treat a slave like a partner, someone you love, like the church. It's not a
I
slave.
said semi-slave.
Semi-slave. What's a semi-slave? What's that even mean?
It's somewhere between free and slave. You bought and sold women with money. They were commodities. They were goods on a market.
Yes, that's not how. It's not how God doesn't say anything about buying women in the
He
New Testament.
does. On multiple
In the
occasions,
New
he
Testament.
he tells you, about handling the bride prices.
I know that was like a barbarian society. God had to kind of make laws that fit into the way they used to act.
He certainly didn't have to. No, why did he have to?
Well, he had to because people and the culture is not just going to change like instantly. And God allows us to have
Why?
a
Why
choice in the way
couldn't
we
they?
behave.
God said to follow these laws so that you will not be like the nations around you. He specifically said, "I'm giving you these laws so you will be different." So why wouldn't he just give them laws that actually did change them and make them different from the nations around them? Because all the laws I'm reading are pretty much the same as the nations around them.
But I know, like back in the day, like it doesn't say something in Deuteronomy that not forcing anybody to it's not forcing anyone into marriage.
I don't know anything about that. No, not in Deuteronomy.
It said that
In
well,
fact, in
God
Deuteronomy
create
25, God specifically forces women into marriage. It says in Deuteronomy 25 that if a woman becomes widowed, she must marry her husband's brother, her deceased husband's brother. She can't marry outside of the family. He doesn't even think women should practice bodily autonomy.
well, it's not like God goes around. It's not like God goes around like commending great. Like he's a person who like there's morals.
He actually does. He
What?
commands it in Numbers 31.
I gotta see that. It's not great. Can't do that.
He instructed the Israelites to kill all the children except for the little children virgin girls, and then he distributed them among the warriors. What do you think a bunch of
Yeah.
warriors that just went out in battle is going to do with a bunch of little virgin girls?
Well, aren't they being handed over because they're now vulnerable and they need protection?
No, warriors. What do you think warriors are doing? Young 20-year-old, 22-year-old men who just went to a bloody battle are now given a bunch of little virgin girls. What do you think they're going to do with them?
Or don't take them into their households and take care of them like they would like a neighbor.
Yeah.
They didn't save any little boys, interestingly.
Yeah,
No
just little
little boys were
girls.
saved.
What
Just the girls.
what kind of taking care of them do you think they're doing? Don't you think that they're, I don't know, maybe turning them into war brides?
Well, they know that God's not a God of like evil. Like
But he
he
is.
like everything God does is good. So let's see. Okay, take me to the
What
passage you're showing the.
what do you think they did with the little virgin girls?
Does it say what they did in the Bible?
What did they do with them?
What part of Numbers 31 are you talking about specifically, so I can read it?
It's in Numbers 31. I think it starts in like verse 11.
And this is where they're ending the lives of most of the children, right? Is this the one we're talking about? So
Yep.
they weren't protecting children. They ended the lives of the children. The
Yep.
only ones they saved were virgin girls.
Right. So they went to war against Midian. It says Moses became angry with the officers of the army because they didn't kill all the people. So the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds who had come from service in war, Moses said to them, "Have you allowed all the women to live? These women here, on Balaam's advice, made the Israelites act treacherously against the Lord in the affair of Peor, so that the plague came among the congregation of the Lord. Now therefore execute every male among the little ones, and execute every woman who has known a man by sleeping with them. But all of the young girls," it says chataf in Hebrew, meaning children, "all of the children girls who have not known a man by sleeping with them, keep alive for yourselves." And then later on in the chapter, God himself weighs in and says how to divide them. God speaks to Moses and tells you how to take the little virgin girls and divide them among the priests and the warriors.
Well, what age do you think these people most likely were? Like these girls?
They were
Does it
children.
matter?
It also doesn't matter, but they were children
Does it like how do you know they're children specifically?
because it says chataf in Hebrew means the children.
So they divided children.
Yeah, they divided up
But
little,
again, just girls.
Mhm.
Just girls.
just little girls. By the way, the little boys were executed.
So they executed all little boys and they kept little girls for themselves.
Yeah, they kept all the little virgin, not all the little girls, just the virgin girls. Someone had to go and check them. They kept all the little virgin girls for themselves and divided them among the warriors.
This is absolutely disturbing. You know what, Justin, I'm done. I lose. I'm done.
All right.
Okay. I'm done.
Cheers, buddy. Have a good one. Good to hear from you again, Creed. Come back soon. I'm surprised you haven't heard of Numbers 31 yet.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, honestly, hands off to him for saying, wow, that's bad. Like, seriously, I tip my hat, sir, that you didn't justify that. Like,
It's a tough thing to read and to admit. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, guys, make sure you're following Sarah. If you're not already following Leaving Faith, follow her on YouTube and on TikTok. I'm going to grab a couple super chats. We'll get our next guest right up in here.
Oh, and we have Justin and I have a new episode dropping today on my YouTube page. So if you like Justin's expertise, it's coming this afternoon.
It's a fun one. We're in the triplet of she's actually not my wife. She's my sister, except this time it's not actually his sister. It's a good time. Viper says, my family's faith tradition supports the overt shunning of homosexuality supported by the New Testament. Anyone help combating this on their terms? Not really. So it sounds like they're Mennonite or Amish. They still practice shunning. Some of the apostolic denominations do as well. But no, the Bible's not pro-homosexuality. The Bible is anti-homosexuality. What you need to be doing is stop trying to bend the words in the Bible to make it not about homosexuality and just take it out back and burn it. Just say this is a disgusting book. Trust me, there are scholars who argue that the Bible doesn't actually talk about homosexuality in the way that people think it does. And that's kind of partially true, but the Bible does outright condemn it. So at some point, you just have to admit that the Bible is wrong. There's nothing wrong with being born or being homosexual. That's just the way we are, the way our biological makeup is, and the Bible is a silly, silly document. Burner says, had some Kraken over the weekend. Hell yeah. And I almost polished the bottle off. Never liked rum, but it is really good. I told you Kraken's good. It's amazing. There's a reason why it's only been on the market for a couple years, but it's exploded.
I don't think I've ever had it.
I'll fix it, Sarah. Don't worry. I'll make sure you get some Kraken in your system.
Okay. And I have to make sure you have Malort. Anyone in the chat drinks Malorts? Let me know.
All right, you bring Malort. I'll bring some ketchup hot dogs, and we'll have a time.
Oh no! Blasphemy! Stop it.
Randy, my friend, thank you for the $10 super chat. Says, could you give a brief thought on Psalm 21:16, pierce my hands and my feet? I think you mean 22:16, versus other possible translations like a lion, they are at my hands and my feet. Well, Randy, I did a whole video on this on my main YouTube account. I would run over to Deconstruction Zone and watch the whole video on Psalm 22. I go in depth on everything, but the reality is, the passage doesn't say pierce. The word for pierce in Hebrew is dakar. It doesn't use that word. It has two possible words that were in the original text, but we don't know which one it was because the old texts that we have are all corrupted. It's got a word in there that doesn't actually exist in biblical Hebrew. Nobody knows exactly what it was meant to be there. It's possibly a misspelling of kara. If that's the case, then it could mean to dig. So that's why some translations will say they dig at my hands and my feet like a pack of wild dogs. Some like the Masoretic text says kari. Kari means like a lion, so that's why you get like a lion. But either way, we don't really know what was in the original text. That's why every translation has something different, because every translation is trying to figure out, okay, what was supposed to be here but got corrupted. But go to my main channel, watch that video. I think you'll like it a lot. Marcus says, this is always fun. Yet another apologist who endorses Super Hell. It's like the Family Guy episode with Super Devil on the Harley. Nice guy, though. Actually, he is a nice guy. I've talked to Creed a few times. Creed's a nice guy. But his belief system obviously needs some work. Bertram, thank you for the jellyfish. I really appreciate that, friend, and thank you for the fireworks as well. Morpheus says Christian authority is Paul, not God. Wow, actually, this is a good point, Morpheus. Most Christians, and you know this as well as anyone else, most Christians really follow Paul. They don't follow Jesus all that much. And Walking Dead says the simplest way to know if a holy book was written by men is to discern how it treats women. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you can tell pretty quick the gender of the person writing the book. And Mr. Murphy says what Paul said is more important to God. It is, and Paul directly contradicts the God of the Old Testament. And Christians still believe Paul, which means they don't think that the God of the Old Testament speaks truth. And Joey Dammit, great name. Thank you for the $10 Canadian chat. Says, finally, my atheist Mount Rushmore is complete. First Hitch, then Matt, who badly needs a vacation. He does. Then Bart Ehrman really set the record straight. And now Justin, prophet of Doug. Thank you, sir. Well, Joey, thank you so much as well. And I think we need to make a space on Mount Rushmore for Sarah as well, who's a mountain in deconstruction herself. Nightman comes says, out sick from work, but Justin is live. Hell yeah. Well, Nightman, I'm sorry that you're sick. That stinks, but I hope you get better, and I hope the stream makes you feel better. And Space Lord says, fear of hell. As a little kid, when I would hear a plane flying overhead, I would get scared thinking it was Jesus coming, terrifying, but I'm better now. Space Lord, isn't that funny? Like the way we conceive of these religious concepts when we're children. Like the first time I went to church as like a 6-year-old, I went to Catholic church, and I didn't know much about church. I just knew about little baby Jesus because we were Americans and we had Christmas, right? And I kept hearing a baby cry in church, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. There was no baby I could see. And finally, I asked my mom, I was like, is that baby Jesus? Like in my little brain, I was like, is baby Jesus here in the church?
Could be, right?
Because you don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like your brain is still like so unformed. All right, let me grab a couple more super chats, and then we're going to get Jesse in here. Jennifer says, heck yeah, painting in the studio all day with a surprise DZ live. Day made. Thanks for keeping me company while I work. Well, Jennifer, I'm glad to keep you company while you're at work, and join our Discord and show off your paintings. We'd love to see them. And Hadassah's Concubine, amazing name. Amazing name. From Reverend Ricky Skaggs, says, I knew it was you, buddy. Says, life has taken a strange turn. Just saying hello before she notices I'm let out of my cage. Please help. Well, listen, Hadassah's Concubine, I don't know exactly what's happening over there, but if you need any help, let me know. I will help as much as possible. And Adam says, Christians may try to redefine slavery, but we have the Evid defense, the slave defense in Hebrew. For anyone wondering, that's how you spell slave in Hebrew. It's pronounced Evid. And Adam coming in again. Oh no, sorry, that was a triplicate. Minutemen says, is it too early in the week to say fuck the patriarchy? Just checking. It's never too early. It is never too early, friends. And last one from Apostate Chess. Thank you for the $5 super chat. It says, quote, there's no wild beast as dangerous to man as these Christians are to each other. Roman Emperor Julian the Apostate. That's such a good quote. So actually, if you haven't read Julian Against the Galileans, oh my gosh, I highly recommend reading Julian Against the Galileans. It's only like 70 or 80 pages long. It's not a huge read. He roasts the Christian church just as bad as Celsus did back in Origen's day. It's amazing. The opponents, it's so good. The opponents of Christianity early on had great arguments. Then they kind of disappeared into obscurity once the Romans took over and started executing everyone who disagreed with them. Sorry to get Jesse in the box. It looks like Jesse Lemoyne. We'll see if Jesse can connect. Jesse's been waiting here for a little bit to get in, so we'll see what we can do.
Can you say that someone asked, can you say the name of the book again? What, Julian what?
It's Julian Against the Galileans. Is the book.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, if Jesse cannot connect, I have to go. But thank you so much for having me on. I apologize if I got kind of heated.
No, it was great. It was great.
Thank you for letting me,
It was good to have you up here, Sarah.
I appreciate it. Well, have a wonderful day, everybody, and thanks again for having me on.
Cheers, Fred. Have a great one.
Bye.
All right, we didn't get Jesse connect. I can pop you out. There we go. We didn't get Jesse to connect, so we'll grab Anika's been waiting in the queue for YouTube a little bit, so we'll get Anika into the guest box. We've got just a couple more super chats from Tommy. Tommy says, "Helen, just saying." That word's actually escaping me. It looks like ohel, which is the Hebrew word for tent, but I'm not sure what the final noon is doing on top of it. It could be a first-person conjugation of Helen, but I don't actually know what Helen would mean in Hebrew. That word is not in my vocabulary. So, Tommy, I apologize. Unless you're speaking modern Hebrew, which I don't actually know. Believe it or not, I know this is crazy to think about, but biblical Hebrew is not identical to modern Hebrew. So if you're speaking modern Hebrew to me, my vocabulary is even shorter. But thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. And Cheap Snack says, congrats on getting 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. So grateful for you. You're doing the good Doug's work. Well, thank you so much for the super chat and for supporting and watching the stream. And we did finally cross 50,000 on the YouTubes. It's a big mark. Next goal, I think the next goal is 75,000. Is that the logical next goal? We'll see what happens. Anika, how you doing? Anika? Anika, are you with us?
Is it to me?
Yeah. How you doing, Anika? Thanks for being patient.
It's Anka, but yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
It looks like there's an I in there. I apologize. It's Anka. That's my bad.
Yeah, it's okay. Nothing much. I'm unfortunately not a believer. I just have a couple questions. First of all, I want to say big thank you for your work, because it's truly wonderful. Like, your cheat sheet is just amazing. It's such a good work. I love it. And do you know any like Muslim or channels about Islam that do the same thing as you? Because I know like M is great, but he's not doing any videos, unfortunately.
I would check out the Atheist Republic. So Armin Na'avi is his last name. Let's see. Let me make sure I get that right. Armin Navabi. I always forget. Armin Navabi is his name. Oops, sorry. Let me put it on the screen for you. So Armin Navabi, he does counter apologetics a lot on his channel, the Atheist Republic. And he does have a pretty sizable YouTube channel. Let me pull it up on the screen for you. And he's started doing a lot more live streams. So I'm sure you can get on and talk to him a little bit. But it's just the @Atheist Republic, and it's a dope channel, and I really like the guy. He's pretty awesome.
Nice. Can community somehow bully M to do some videos and stuff? Because he's really knowledgeable about all the things he's talking about, and it would be so delightful to have him.
Well, I don't know if Ems is going to go full in on counter apologetics, only because of where he lives and who he knows. Like, he can't risk being being found out, because they will put him on a list. In fact, Armin, I can't tell you where he lives, but he had to leave. He had to flee his country, because now he's on the apostate list as well. They'll execute him. So the only reason why he can do what he's doing is because he left.
Yeah, that's mostly always the case with ex-Muslims.
Right.
Unfortunately. Well, I'm not gonna eat more time. I hope you're gonna find some Christians who are not gonna run from the questions.
Well, I mean, I think we both know that's not likely to be the case.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the same thing in my country, in Russia, to do like debates with Orthodox Christians here. Most of them are running from the questions as well, and even less of them read Bible.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, good luck to you. Let me know if you need any help. Hit me up on the Discord if you have any specific questions, and we'll help you work through them.
Sure. Thank you.
All All right. Cheers, friend. Good to hear from you. And name was Anka, not Anika. I remember that. Okay, so I looked up the Alan that was super chatted. So I did look up your greeting here. Looks like this is a modern word that was borrowed from Arabic. And it just means hello. So you're just saying hello. I appreciate that. Sorry, I know. I feel like people think that if you know biblical Hebrew, do you just know all Hebrew? I have no idea of modern Hebrew. There's a lot of words in modern Hebrew, and even the grammar that I don't know. So I apologize for that. And Space Lord says Matthew 10:28, fear, one that can KILL the body and the soul. Okay, so Space Lord, that's why I asked him if he believed in annihilation, because there are passages like Matthew 10:28 that would point towards annihilation rather than eternal punishment. But there are verses that would counteract that, right? So I'm willing to let them pick and choose which type of hell they want. Adele, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, friend. Says thanks to you and Doug for the workday entertainment. Earbuds in, coworkers, SOL. Glad to see Sarah too. Thank you so much, Adele. I really appreciate you. And listen, if I can entertain you at work, that makes me happy. So I know a lot of people find me entertaining, but just so you guys know, like, it makes my heart glad when I know I can be entertainment and help for somebody else. So I appreciate you letting me know. And speaking of, rock hard for Doug, Big W, thank you for the $10 super chat, buddy. Says, and lo, I will send my prophet, not eating locusts, but ketchup on hot dogs and preaching about my suffering servant, the Browns, the book of Doug. And isn't that the truth? Listen, if you are a Browns fan, you're a suffering servant. I don't know how else to say it. Isaiah 53 was obviously about me, and all the rest of the Brown fans, all of us who have to cheer for the mistake on the lake and go to the factory of sadness. Connor, my friend, great to see you, says, missed the Dono stream, but I would have given if I could. Big W to the community that you can keep helping other members. Praise Doug, Spanky, and Roland. Well, Connor, thank you so much for being here. And remember, just liking and sharing the stream helps a lot with the algorithm. And we want to help people in the community because we actually do have morals despite being atheists. And last one from Steve Harvey Oswald. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Says, if you are a Christian who believes that everyone who unalives before the age of reason automatically goes to heaven, wouldn't the most natural or most moral action be to have as many abortions as possible? So Steve, I did an entire live stream on this a couple times where my prompt said that the most Christian thing you can do is get an abortion. And I stand by it. I think the most Christian thing you can do, the most merciful thing you can do is to abort your babies from the Christian worldview, because they don't risk going to hell that way. You give them a golden ticket right to heaven. What a wild loophole that God forgot to plug. Welcome in, Holy. I can't read all the letters in the. It's Theolokos. How you doing? Theotokos? Is that a T or a K or L?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. It's Holy Theotokos. It's named after the Blessed Mother. I was also going by Ralph on the YouTube. So first of all, I appreciate you allowing me to come and speak. I try not to preach or pontificate. I just want to make sure I have your point down clear. Do you believe that there is any God? What is your debate, like, your basic worldview? What is the foundation?
Well, I'm an atheist. I don't have any evidence of a God to believe in. If there was evidence for a God, I would certainly believe in the God. I think when it comes to the formalized gods, like the gods of Buddhism, the gods of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, I think those are gods that we can pretty much prove don't exist. I think there are some gods that you can't really prove don't exist. Like if you believe in like a deistic God, I would say like these are gods that are hard to disprove, but at the same time, it's kind of useless because the amount of people who believe in some deistic form of God is incredibly tiny. And I would also add that if you believe in a God that's minimal, like it does so little, it's just a deistic entity, that there's almost no distinction between a deistic God and just a natural force that does the same thing as the deistic God, but minus like some of the properties of God, like having intelligence. But sorry, are you a Catholic?
Yes, yeah. I'm a Roman Catholic convert.
Sure.
My problem with your worldview would be that if you don't believe in a God, you have no justification for. I heard earlier when you were talking, I forgot it was the guy in the beginning. It was when the I
SF
forgot his name.
man. Yeah, you think that atheists
Yes.
aren't allowed to have morals?
No. You 100% have morals. It's the problem is that you don't have any justification for your morals because your morals are entirely relative and subjective to your emotions.
Well, no, they're not subjective to my emotions. They're subjective to my intellect, right? So,
Okay.
certainly our emotions play a part in our decision-making process, but I don't think morals are subject just to our emotions. And I don't think that in your worldview, you really have objective morals anyways. What you really have is divine commands. And I don't see why, like, I would have, like, even if I believed in your worldview, I don't know how you connect obligation to follow God's commands with morality. It just seems like you just follow God's commands because otherwise, you have the threat of heaven or hell looming over you.
Yeah, so you can say that ultimately your morals are connected to your intellect, but there are people who I mean I'm not trying to question your intellect, but I'm sure we can agree there are people who are smarter than both of us, who would have different morals.
Well,
So
I'm sure.
just because you
So
there you go. So then
well,
you just agreed they're not objective; they're entirely subjective.
I literally never said they were objective. It's not my position. I don't think objective morals exist, which brings me to point number 2, which is in order to claim that objective morals exist, you actually have to demonstrate that they do. You can't just say, I don't like subjective morals, therefore objective morals. That's not how that works. You have to actually demonstrate.
I never said that wasn't my argument.
You actually have to demonstrate that objective morals exist. Can you do that?
Here's your problem.
Try again. Try again. Can you
demonstrate?
demonstrate? I'm not going to let you finish because I asked you a question, then you ran from it, right? So my question requires an answer, not a complaint, right? So
repeat your question.
Can you demonstrate, prove, or provide an argument that results in objective morals being proven?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
yes,
that's what I'd be interested to hear, because before you complain about my framework, you actually have to demonstrate that objective morals exist.
Yeah, so I'm not complaining at what I'm arguing from is I'm not arguing from an evidentialist. I'm arguing from the transcendental argument for God. What I'm trying to say.
Well, we never heard tag before. This is gonna be new.
I know. What can I say? I love making a fool of myself.
So what would be the argument that would demonstrate that morals are objective?
So if I could just say, before talking about morality, I can totally get into how there's an objective morality. The thing is that you're saying that the objective morality is bad and all this stuff.
Nope, I didn't say that.
You're
nope, never said that.
Okay, fair. Well, then I'll move on to my next point. Would be is that
what I need from you before you complain about morals is to demonstrate that your moral system even exists. Demonstrate that objective morals exist, and then I'll care about objective morals.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Okay, I'll do that. So we have things that are immaterial, like logic.
I disagree.
And reason. Okay. You disagree on that, but I mean, I would say that you can't disagree that we have logic or reason because you're using it to your very point.
I disagree. I think those are languages invented by the human brain. They don't exist transcendently.
I've let you finish. If you could just let me finish my point, I'd be more than happy to let you speak. You asked me to prove my point. I'm trying to do that. Because these things are immaterial, they are not material. Therefore, they are not a product of the material universe or outside the material universe. Therefore, we know that immaterial things can exist. There must be an immaterial creator who put those things into motion.
Adorable. None of that's true. So first you would have to demonstrate that logic exists and it's not just an abstract concept developed by the brain. So saying that it exists immaterially is a cop-out. What we do know is that languages exist, and the laws of logic, numbers, English language, these are all inventions of the human brain to make abstract concept.
Okay. Does absolute truth exist?
I don't think truth exists at all. Again, truth is a description, right?
So, that's not
so when we say that something is true, what we're saying is that the claim being made seems to be in accordance with reality. So truth itself is a description. It's not a thing. Have you tried these talking points with an actual atheist before? Is this your first time?
You know what? I just checked ChatGPT and I said, I'm going up against an atheist. I really need my 5 minutes of fame. Can you give me something to talk about?
That sounds about
Do
right.
you believe before humans existed, right? So I want to go from your worldview. Before humans existed, when we were just, I don't know, primordial pond scum, was the sun a star? Was that still an objective statement?
The sun being the same material entity that it is now seems to be
Answer the
true,
question.
but truth
Was this
isn't a
true?
thing that
It was
exists.
true.
Truth
Okay.
is a description of something, right? So when we say that
So,
it's
but what
true,
you-
we're saying that what we're positing is in accordance with reality. Truth itself doesn't exist no more than a transcendental chair exists. There's no transcendental chair floating around in the universe. Truth is a description of something. That's it.
But see, the problem is though, is that it does exist.
It doesn't.
That objective truth does. Okay, well, it has to. Otherwise, your worldview is
No.
going to fall apart.
It doesn't.
Then you have no base. So, if there's no truth, there's no logic, there's no reason, and how are you using your points to make an argument? If they don't
Truth,
exist?
logic, and reasons are descriptions of ways we make comparisons to things, right? So when I say I'm holding a glass ball, we would say that claim is true. The word true is acting as a description. We're saying that me holding the ball, saying that I'm holding a ball is in accordance with reality. And that comparison between my claim and reality, when they line up, we call that true. It's a description. It's not a thing that exists.
No, but it's still immaterial.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
These are the rules of logic a real thing?
The rules of logic are language, just like the word truth, just like the number 5. They're all languages invented for the brain to do abstractions.
So could I change the rules of logic then? Could I change the rule of non-contradiction?
You could, but the question would be whether or not they're in accordance with reality. Like, you can change any of the laws of logic. In fact, some of the laws of logic even break down when you get into quantum physics. They don't actually hold true on the quantum level.
For the laws of logic?
Yeah.
They don't.
Yep, that's true.
What is what is your basis then for reality? What is the foundation of reality?
The foundation of reality is that we exist.
So it just is essentially your argument.
Yeah, it always will be, and it always has been. We have
that's not an argument.
We have no evidence that there was ever nothing. Do you have evidence that there was once nothing?
Well, what do you mean by nothing? There was no material world, or what?
Yeah, what's the evidence that there was nothing?
You mean you would have? I would say. I mean, there isn't evidence for that.
Okay, so what we know from science is that you can't get something from nothing. What we know from science is matter and energy can't be created or destroyed. So it seems like the most logical explanation of this is that there was never nothing.
But so are you saying that the world was like an infinite regress? It's always existed?
Yeah. And now here's what I can tell you is that in your worldview, you know deep down in your bones that somehow infinite regresses can exist. But I will tell you this, you will spend the next 5 weeks trying to explain why that is the case, and you'll never be able to do it. I've talked to hundreds of Phil bros just like you. Hold on. I've talked to hundreds of Phil bros just like you. Everyone thought they were smarter than the last, and not one of them, never, even a guy with a PhD, has an argument.
Oh my gosh, you had a PhD?
Even for a guy with a PhD has a valid argument for why infinite regresses aren't possible. So just so you know, you're going to fail like everyone who came before you.
I don't know what to do, Lord. He has a PhD. I can say that because if there's an infinite a universe that is, or an infinite moments in time, it's not possible, because then we would never be able to reach this moment in time.
And you'd be wrong.
And how am I wrong?
Because this moment is a finite fixed point on the timeline.
Thank you. You just said it's finite. You just proved that right.
No, this moment is a finite fixed line on an endless timeline. So a moment is a finite moment, right? Infinity is an infinite series of moments. The fact that we're living in a moment only demonstrates that, in fact, the moment we're living in is defined. That's it.
Yes, but there are what you don't seem to realize is that there are an infinite number of times before this point.
That's
So we
right.
would not be able to reach this very point.
No, this point is on the timeline. So just
No,
because
it's not,
just
because
because you don't have a starting point doesn't mean that you're not going to have finite points on the timeline. Every point on the timeline is a finite point.
Wait.
So 5 minutes from now is a
Wait,
finite
wait,
point.
so there's
5 minutes from now is a finite point. We can measure between that point and this point because we got 2 finite points on the timeline.
Okay, but again, what you're failing to realize is that if we have an infinite number of moments, you would never be able to reach the point that we're at.
And
right
why
now.
not?
Because it's infinite, because you would be infinitely getting closer and closer and closer. It's like
You would not.
the curve on a graph.
Nope.
It can't hit the line, but it gets close.
I know you think that you're making a good point, but you're not. Like, all you're saying is that it can't be true because you haven't actually demonstrated.
No, all I'm saying,
So every point on the timeline is a finite point. Every point, every single one of them. And there's going to be in a flow of time, one point after another on the timeline. Every point is on the timeline somewhere.
okay, so can I say that one of your arguments would also be that in order for something to be true, it has to be scientifically true, it has to be proven scientifically real?
No, I mean, there are things that are true, even though we may not be able to explain why they're true. But my point is that if we believe in things, true or not, I think we should have like some kind of a justification for the belief system, right? So if I said, I believe that there's actually aliens in the Andromeda galaxy, right? There are extraterrestrials living over there. Listen, it might be true that there's alien life over there. I have no evidence of it, so I don't really have a reason to believe it.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like you're saying that there could be. You're saying that we may be living in, or we are living in a universe that it has an infinite time, right? Is that what you were? Am I stating your point correctly?
Well, I don't even think that's a good way to state my point. Although, if you believe that matter always existed, you would then fundamentally believe that time always existed, because time seems to be a emergent property from matter actually existing.
And do you believe that?
I personally do. I believe that time seems to be an emergent property of matter. In fact, that even bolsters my case, right? Because I think your concept of time is like something that exists transcendentally, and that's not actually my concept of time.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to just say is that I would say that my viewpoint makes more sense because I'm going from the uncaused cause, where you're just saying no, it just is material. The material world and time has just always existed.
Your uncaused cause just is. Like, you haven't fixed it by going to an uncaused cause that has no explanation. That has no explanation, nor does it even need to be necessary, right? So in my worldview, not only do I not have any evidence for your uncaused cause, I don't have any reason to believe that it has a need. There's no need for an uncaused cause in my worldview. And the other thing is, even if I had the worldview that there was once nothing and now there's something, I certainly don't have any reason to believe that the so-called uncaused cause is some sort of sentient agent that just wanted to like be in harmony with some creation that he will torture for eternity in hell.
Yeah, okay, so you can say that, but you don't actually have a reason to tell me why eternal torture is, if that was even true, you don't have a reason to tell me why that's objectively wrong.
Again, I don't believe in objective morals. All I can tell you is what it is. Fine. All I can tell you is what is subjectively coherent in my worldview. So, like, if you believe in a God that is omnibenevolent, omnipotent, so he's all powerful, he's all loving, and he's also all knowing, which I assume that's the God you believe in, because you're giving me like philosophy 101 Philbro arguments. So if that's the God you believe in, all I have to do is look at your book and ask myself, is the behavior of this God parsimonious with those characteristics? And it's actually just not. So the idea, that a God is all loving, all powerful, and all knowing, yet he sends people to hell, whether you think they're tortured for eternity or only for a time period, to me seems to break this idea of the omni God. It seems logically incoherent.
Again, this is an appeal to yourself.
It's
right?
not.
So that's fine. It is because you've already said that morality is subjective.
Do you think logical contradictions exist?
What is morality? Yes, I do think that they exist. But
Oh, like what?
That's besides the point.
Can you
What
name
you're
one?
saying is that what you're telling me is
Can you
that
name one?
I think God should do what I want him
No,
to
I
do
didn't say that
because
at
I
all.
feel a certain way.
Nope. It has nothing to
You
do with
did
my.
just
It has
say
nothing to do with my preferences. It has to
that.
do
Yeah,
with the
100%
logical properties of
everything you did, 'cause
God.
you
So,
just told me.
so holy,
You just said
holy,
when I read
stop
this
talking
book.
for 5 seconds because you didn't listen to what I said. Has nothing to do with my
Okay.
preferences and everything to do with the definitions of your God. If your God is omnibenevolent, he's all good and all loving, that entails that he doesn't cause unnecessary suffering. Is that a logical entailment of being
That is
omnibenevolent?
see, but this is your problem. Is that what you're
It's a
doing?
yes or no.
You are using.
No crying. I don't care about your crying. I ask you a yes or no question. Don't crash out. Give me a yes or no. Is it logically entailed, being omnibenevolent, that you don't cause unnecessary pain and unnecessary suffering? Is that entailed in the worldview?
You're a coward. You're a coward. You're literally muting your opponent.
I'm muting you because you don't stop talking because you're a child, right? So
No, 'cause you're a coward.
I asked you an easy yes or no question and you ran from it like a little chicken. So yes
No,
or
I
no,
didn't.
is it
Just straight.
logically entailed in your worldview that being omnibenevolent means that you don't create unnecessary suffering?
What do you mean by unnecessary suffering?
It means whatever you want it to. It's any amount of suffering.
See, no,
It's any amount of suffering that it's any. Holy, pay attention. This is why you're getting muted. So
I'm trying.
unnecessary suffering has a definition, doesn't it?
Yes.
What does it mean? What's the definition? What's the definition of unnecessary?
It's a good question. I would have to think about it. An unnecessary suffering.
Well, no, I would say unnecessary anything.
I would say that I struggle with that idea of unnecessary suffering because I'm going by my own viewpoint of what I believe to be necessary or unnecessary. And I am not the sole arbiter of truth. I am not the sole arbiter of what is necessary and unnecessary.
I'm not asking you to divide which suffering is necessary and which one's not. I'm asking you for definitions.
But in order to define
unnecessary suffering is suffering that isn't required, right? So if it's necessary, that means it is required. It couldn't be any other way. So when we talk about necessary suffering, it's suffering that couldn't be any other way. You have to have it. Like, for example, the prick of a needle to get your vaccine. Yes, it stinks. No one likes getting pricked with a needle, but it's necessary suffering to get you to the goal, right? So unnecessary suffering would be like if a doctor walked in with that same needle, but he punched me in the nose and then he gave me the shot. Well, the punch in the nose wasn't necessary, was it?
Well, okay, but I just want to...
Holy, it was a yes or no question. Yes or no? Is the punch in the nose necessary?
Fine, I'm working on it. I would say that I cannot know unnecessary versus necessary suffering.
So if a doctor walks in the room and punches you in the nose to give you a shot, you don't know if that's necessary?
Well, I would certainly think it's unnecessary.
Okay, so there is some occasions where you know if suffering's necessary.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Yes, I would.
Okay, so necessary suffering must be required to get you to the goal. Like the end goal requires the suffering to be along the way. If any point in time, if you can achieve your goal without the suffering, then it becomes unnecessary. Do you understand?
Yeah. I just want to ask, and again, forgive me if I'm getting a little excited. I want to say I thank you for allowing me to come and speak with you. I really appreciate it. Can you tell me why is suffering bad?
Well, to me, bad is a subjective worldview, a subjective term in my worldview. But in your worldview, it's not. You think that there is such a thing as actual good and bad. That's why I'm doing an internal critique on your worldview. My worldview is irrelevant right now.
No, but I'm just saying you have a problem where you can't actually...
I do have a problem. It's a critique on your worldview, and alls I need are the definitions and your actual worldview. So in your worldview, you believe that being omnibenevolent requires that you only do the necessary suffering and not the unnecessary suffering. Do you agree?
Let's say, I'd have to honestly look into it some more, but let's say I do.
You don't know?
Let's say I'd like to. Well, I want to make sure that I'm answering your questions faithfully. I don't want to just spit stuff out. So I would say I would say that there is, I would say suffering wasn't originally in the divine plan, but due to human free will, it entered into the world.
Okay, so
and through it, God has redeemed it and allowed good to come from it.
okay, so God does or doesn't want suffering?
I don't think God originally didn't want suffering.
Okay, so God doesn't want suffering. Now, did God create a world that includes suffering?
No, God didn't create a world that originally was suffering.
I didn't ask about originally.
No, he didn't create a world that had suffering. No.
Okay, so let's talk about natural disasters, hurricanes, flash floods, volcanoes,
Right.
you name it, right?
Okay.
Who created those things?
Okay. That's a good question. I guess you could say. You know what? I'll say I don't believe this, but I'll say God created that tornado that tore down Grandma's house.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, but why is it bad that Grandma's house got destroyed?
So again, in your worldview, I know you want to pivot so hard away from your worldview, but I'm not going to let you. So you're not going to let it happen. I don't know if you know this. I've been doing this. I've been doing this longer and with more intelligent people than you. I will never let you pivot. So what we're doing is critiquing your actual worldview, and I'm demonstrating to you why it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. So in your worldview, you believe in a God that doesn't want suffering. He has the capability of designing the world without the suffering, specifically suffering that's not related to free will. We understand that if you have free will, a human being might say something to another human being that could hurt their feelings. This seems to be what we would call necessary suffering because it's required for free will to exist. We're not talking about that. We're talking about natural disasters where 100,000 people a year are executed on average, seemingly at random.
Why is it an objectively bad thing?
Again, I've never said it was in my worldview. We're talking about your worldview. And again, I'll never let you pivot. I don't care how many times you pivot. I'll never let you do it. You will waste all of your time up here pivoting and it will go nowhere. So if you actually want to have a productive conversation, then you need to actually stop pivoting because we're doing an internal critique on your worldview right now. So in your worldview, if God causes unnecessary suffering, that means that he's not all good. He might be maximally good. He might be the best good, but he can't be all good, right? He also can't be all just, which contradicts Deuteronomy 32:4. So does God, right? Does he create
the Bible if you don't believe in the Bible?
Because you do. It's an internal critique. You should know this. So in your worldview, the Bible means something, not in mine. So in your worldview, it seems that you have a bit of a problem because God does cause unnecessary suffering via natural disasters, unless you think they're necessary. Do you think they're necessary or unnecessary?
I can't say.
You can't say if natural disasters are necessary?
You also can't tell me why they're bad or good.
Again, in my worldview, it's a subjective. It's bad. I think they're bad. In your worldview,
it doesn't matter what you think, though, right?
Holy, pay attention.
Here's the thing.
Holy, I'm not judging. Holy, I'm not doing anything holy. I'm not judging your God by my morals. I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is in your framework, the God you worship doesn't line up. There are contradictions between the book, the reality we live in, and the God you've described. There are contradictions, and I don't believe that contradictions, unless we're talking about quantum physics, I don't think contradictions can exist. So I'm saying that your particular God results in contradictions, which is why I don't believe that your God is real.
Okay, but according to you, contradictions, all the laws of logic and everything are just made up by the human mind. So ultimately, it's all up to your own interpretation anyway.
Well,
you are your own
all
God.
Observations of reality are up to interpretation. All we're doing is interpreting the reality around us. You're never going to get away from that. So that's a nonsense statement. The reality is,
no, I am because again,
the reality is that the God you believe in, has logical contradictions, and in your worldview, you don't believe that logical contradictions can exist. Unless you do. Do you think not in my worldview? Again, in your worldview, can logical contradictions exist?
No.
Okay, but you've got one. You've got a big logical
No, I
contradiction with
don't.
your God, because your
You
God,
think I do? I don't.
because your God is omnibenevolent, but he causes unnecessary suffering. If the
Yeah,
natural
because he
disasters
allows.
if the natural disasters are
First,
necessary, then you need to be able to explain what they're necessary for.
I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say they're necessary. I would say that
So they're
they are
unnecessary.
unnecessary.
Okay.
Yes, they're unnecessary.
So then we agree. God
Okay.
causes unnecessary suffering, which means he's not all good, and most
He allows
likely
it.
we can even say he's not all just.
Oh my gosh! Well, you see, the problem you're running into again is that you're judging it based on your own subjective.
No, I'm
worldview.
not.
Yes, you are.
No,
'cause
I'm not.
listen,
This is a
what you-
definitional
what you're
argument.
saying
I don't know. I don't know how hard this
telling-
is for you. I know you can't listen very well, but this is an argument
far.
based on definitions. That's it.
No,
This
well,
is there's
the problem
nothing to
is
there's
you
nothing to
have-
do there's nothing to do with what I think is bad. This is
Yes, it does.
these are
because you
the
have no
these
way
are
to
the
argue with.
holy, pay attention. These are definitions you agreed to. You agree to the meanings of these definitions, and you've got
But
to the
you
point
don't-
you've got to the point where you've agreed that God does unnecessary suffering. And you told me you agreed with the definition that being omnibenevolent requires that you don't cause unnecessary suffering. Do you want to change your opinion on that? Do you change your mind?
No, what I want to say is that you have no justification for whether or not something is wrong.
I don't
or
have
good.
to. It's
totally
an
up
internal
to you.
critique on your
Yes, you do.
worldview. No,
You do.
wrong again.
You do.
Nope,
You're
wrong
critique on
again.
my
Nope, you're
worldview.
wrong every time you say it. This is an internal critique on your worldview. The only thing that
No
matters
matter
right
how many
now.
times you say that Christianity is a
Listen, I need you to focus up because right now you're doing a really poor job of defending your faith. You could probably do a better job. You don't sound stupid. You just sound like you're stubborn, okay? So pay attention. The entire argument we're having about necessary suffering has nothing to do with my opinion. Not a damn thing. My opinion means shit in this argument. The only thing that matters are the definitions and the meanings of words. That's it, right? And you agreed to the definitions that we started out with. You agreed that you can't be all loving and all good and then also cause unnecessary suffering. And then you said that God causes unnecessary suffering. That's literally just a contradiction. Do you see how that's...
cause. I didn't say cause. I said allow.
Okay. He causes them. So you want to change it to allow. We'll go to allow, and I'll demonstrate to you why allow isn't a workable theory either. Okay. So does God allow or does he cause natural disasters? Yes. Where are you? You say allow?
I can't fully know that, but I would say
You can't fully know.
I say allow.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Who created the earth?
You can be a smart ass. I'm just
Who
letting you
created
know.
the earth?
God created the earth.
Okay. Did he create the earth knowing that there would be natural disasters?
Yes.
Okay. Could he have created the earth without natural disasters?
Not without humanity to cause sin to enter.
Wrong again. We'll try this again from the beginning.
Nope, I'm not wrong again.
Could
I'm not
God
president.
create
That's not-
could God create the earth in a way that when Adam and Eve sinned, that natural disasters were not a consequence?
I guess so.
Oh, okay. That means they're not necessary anymore. See, you did it again. God creates natural disasters. He's the only one to blame for them, and they're not necessary.
Right.
See, all of your time studying these bad philosophical arguments, all of your time watching William Lane Craig, none of it works. The minute you talk to an atheist, it's spent
No, I
at
don't
least
really like him.
at least five conversations in. These are bad arguments,
Well,
Holy. You're smart. You can do
yeah.
better than this.
Okay, I appreciate it. If you just could try to refrain from just sounding kind of like a little bit of a jerk. So we've discussed my worldview. Can I now discuss problems that I see with your worldview?
You're more than welcome to, but keep in mind, I don't think you actually know what my worldview is.
Okay, so your worldview would be that there is no divine creator. Everything just is. Everything has just always existed. But logic, reason, and truth only exist within the human mind.
They're just abstract languages that we created. That's it.
So then there is no objective truth outside of that. Your truth is your truth.
Wrong. No. So what I believe is that there is an objective reality, but we have to use our own minds to figure out what the objective reality is. And because we're using our own minds to figure out what reality is, that means we're accessing the objective reality subjectively. But we have no reason to believe, like, unless you really believe that we're brains in a vat, I think we're all starting at the same axiom that there is a reality objectively.
Okay, but you just said objectively there is a reality.
No, I didn't say that. I said we are
Well,
interacting with an objective reality subjectively.
There you go, objective reality.
So I don't think you know how words work. So I'm not making an
No, I don't.
objective claim about reality. I'm saying that there is, as far as
You
I'm
are, though. You're saying
aware.
that.
But Holy, you can't respond to anything I'm saying if you're talking while I'm talking. I don't know why you keep doing
Neither
this.
can you. But
So
what you're saying is that there is an objective reality, which is an absolute truth.
I didn't say that. I didn't say
You
that at
just
all.
did.
So what you're trying to do is you went through, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist, and you think you've got these really fun gotcha questions you're going to pull out, and they're not going to work on me. I already know it. I read the book when I was 16. It was a shit book then. It's a shit book now. These dumb philosophical gotchas don't actually work here. So what I said was that as far as we know, we are operating on the axiom that there is an objective reality. It's not just a figment of our imaginations. We're not brains in a vat. That's something that you and I take as axiomatic, right? We're okay with that,
Yes,
right?
that's
What I said,
okay.
hold
I'm
on,
okay with that.
stop talking. What I
I
said,
just told you I'm okay with it. Relax, buddy.
you don't have to talk while I'm talking. You can just not talk and listen. So what I said was that seems that we're interacting with that reality subjectively because it requires our brain to do it, right? So even though I believe there's an objective reality, the only thing we know about reality is in fact subjective.
Is that objectively true?
It's a belief.
Okay? So so it's not objectively true then?
Again, I don't believe in objective truths. You're asking a nonsensical question. I just told you that the reality we're operating in is subjective. I believe my claims about reality are subjective claims.
Could I say then that your belief that there is not an objective truth is an objective truth?
No, it's subjective.
And then but it's not because it's
objective.
It is.
It's subjective.
How is it subjective if I'm saying that you have said?
Because I'm not saying anything objectively. Again, you keep wanting me to make objective claims, and I've not made one.
No,
I told you 3 times now that my claims about reality are subjective because I have to use my mind to get there. The minute I have to use my mind to make observations about reality, all of those observations are subjective. They are subject to my brain.
Okay. So they're subject to your brain, and your brain is can you trust your brain for all understandings, and is your brain proven to be, would you say, reliable?
I think that in the world we live in, the brain is proven to be mostly reliable, not completely reliable. It does fail from time to time, but that seems to be true in both of our worldviews.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to go back to you said that there's no objective logic, right? It just exists within the human mind, right?
Yeah, it's a language we invented. It describes the world we live in.
So would you be okay with somebody else saying something like, I'm asking this, I want to be honest and fair. Would you be okay with somebody saying, I think that the sky is actually black today, or 2 + 2 = 5? Would you say that, okay, that's fine, that's just your rules of logic?
No, I would say, can you demonstrate that to be the case? And then most likely, they either would give it up and say, okay, I was just joking, or they would go on and embarrass themselves trying to demonstrate that it's true. Now, you can redefine how numbers work. You're welcome to do that. Listen, if you redefine 1 and 2 and 3, sure, you can redefine them to get to that conclusion. But using the defined numbers that we agreed on their meanings, no, you can't do it.
Yeah, well, I guess my concern would just be that if there is no if logic is just subjective, then why should anyone's argument have any water over anybody else's? If logic exists purely in the mind, then if a human being had a different shaped mind and came to a different conclusion of logic, well then surely that must be okay because it's based on their brain chemistry that's developed differently.
No, so logic is observed throughout our species. So we observe that there are ways the universe behaves, right? So a long time ago, someone said, listen, it seems to be the case that something either exists or it doesn't exist. It doesn't seem that anything exists and doesn't exist at the same time. And we just said that seems to always be the case. Therefore, it's a rule in logic. Like logically, something either exists or it doesn't do both. Now, that claim, listen, we could discover that doesn't always hold true, that there's an exception to that rule, right? but it'd be up to somebody to demonstrate that there's an exception.
But that would be using our laws of logic that we have
No, using proof.
right now.
Using proof. You'd have to point to something and say, look, that something over there, it exists and doesn't exist at the same time. And then we could examine it and say, is that the case? Does it exist and not exist at the same time?
Also, like scientifically prove it.
Yeah. The laws of logic were made through observation about the world.
Yeah. How do we know that in order for something to be true, it has to be scientifically true?
I never said that, so I don't know why you're
No,
putting
no,
that
I know,
on me.
no, I'm just asking you. Like, do we, in order for something to be true, does it have to be scientifically true?
I don't know what you even mean by scientifically. The process is just the process of observing and testing. That's it.
Yeah.
So everything is science. Like if I went out and I said it's better to cut your grass at 2.5 inches than 3 inches, that's me invoking science. Now I'm saying that listen, I'm going to make a claim about grass height and and then go out and observe if that is the case. That's just how science works. So like we've been doing science ever since we've existed.
Yeah. But I don't think that can you get any I wouldn't say truth claims, but can you get any value claims from science? Like, well, this is better for you to do because we've scientifically proven it.
Like what?
Well, I would just say like, if somebody said, well, I think that, it's good to, I don't know, I'm making something up. It's good to drink bleach, because it'll it's good for you, but it's like, but that kills you.
Do you think we know how to test that?
Yeah. But what I would say is, I'm just saying, according to their worldview, they might say like, well, it's subjective whether or not it's really good for me. I mean, science is only shown for, studying the laws of nature. I don't think that you can get an ought from a.
The claim is subjective. Do you think there's a way to test it?
If a claim is subjective, is there a way to test it? I don't think so.
No. So there's no way to test if bleach is bad for you if you ingest it?
No, but you can't tell me whether or not.
Did you vote for Trump? Are you part of his medical advisory team?
I don't know if he's hiring. I mean, I'll look into it. No, but what I'm saying is.
But if you're telling me that there's no way to test whether or not something's bad for you, you're living in an alternate universe than I am. I'm not living in that universe.
Why? So, but if I drink bleach and I die from it, why is that a bad thing?
I never said it was a bad thing. I'm saying it's a testable thing. Again, you keep trying to pivot to.
Yeah, no, testable.
Again, you keep trying to pivot to whether or not like you like my moral framework. My moral framework is irrelevant to whether or not your God exists.
Yeah, interesting. Well, you know what? I got to go, but you've given me a lot of points to think about, and I really appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks for coming up, bud.
Yep, have a good day.
Cheers. The Phil Bros, they always come in so confident. Like they are so confident that they got this shit figured out. And they've talked to everybody in their philosophy class. And now they want to go out into the real world and test it on atheists in the wild. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. Marcus says, wow, I actually feel bad for Creed. You could feel the pain in his voice. Marcus, I actually am not convinced that Creed's a real Christian. I'm starting to think that he's spoofing. I don't know. I could be wrong. It's hard to tell. Fen, thank you for the galaxy. Big W, Fen. I appreciate that. TM says, it's unfortunate that Jesus owns the branding for kindness because when his people were in charge during the Middle Ages, we had oppression, nasty executions, and religious wars. Actually, that is the case. Like, if Jesus is like the model for kindness, it's weird that all of Jesus's people, like, when they set up their theocracy, it was a shit show. And Adam says, my granddad had an NDE and he saw his cousin who nobody knew nobody knew then that he died, and they had a convo and he told him that he is gone, explanation. So Adam, I've heard a couple stories of this particular kind. I've never seen proof of any, right? Now, listen, if your granddad had an NDE about this, I'm sure it'd be great to do an investigation into it, but we've done a lot of scientific investigations into NDEs and they never turn out to be true. So it sounds to me like your dad is having a rogue memory about what happened when he was out, or maybe he did have an experience and he's just interpreting it through the lens of his religious viewpoint. And Adam says, shout out from Poland, of course. Yeah, big W, Adam. Thank you for the shout out from Poland. And Diane says, what's with atheists loving BJs? I tried it and my jaw hurts. Well, Dan, I don't know what to tell you. I don't think it's an atheist thing. I think a lot of people enjoy, a good... But the reality is, it's enjoyable, at least for the person receiving, as far as I'm aware. Some people probably enjoy giving as well. I don't really know. I've never tried. But the reality is, maybe you should get one and find out. Zach, thank you for the 1999 super chat. It says, somebody get this person a glass of truth with logic chasers, since there's things that exist. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Making a claim that it seems that things exist. I never thought you would need to have a moral framework for it. Mindful says, guess uncaused cause is just worthless wishful thinking. Yeah, I agree, Mindful. But it's fun to watch them come in confident and then crash out once they realize that their talking points don't work in here. And Daniel, rock hard for Doug, big W, says, listening to Phil Bros is unnecessary suffering. I 1,000,000% agree. There's no more annoying demographic of apologists on the planet than the Phil Bros. They're literally the worst. There's a reason why some live streams won't even tolerate them. Herbie says, could you tell me if there's anything in the Bible that says Jesus was or is God? If not, where does the idea of Jesus as God come from? Thank you. Well, like the entire Gospel of John is positing that Jesus is God. In fact, at the end of it, Thomas says, my Lord and my God to Jesus. John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became manifest, so on and so forth. That's Jesus. It just says Jesus is God. Now, you can make an argument from Greek that it means divine, not the God, not, atheos. But I don't know. I think there's a good case to be made that in the Gospel of John, the author is writing Jesus in as God. You get rid of the Gospel of John, and no, Jesus doesn't appear to be God at all. There's no inkling in the New Testament that Jesus is identical to God if you cut out John. Gen X Christian, big W for the 777, says it seems many believers have a huge hang up on why we are here, and their best answer is be a slave to the blood-loving sky daddy. Mind-blowing. Isn't that wild? That in order to answer the question of why are we here, why is there anything, you have to resort to a theology that says there's a sky carcass that loves you but will torture you forever in hell if you don't get dunked in a river, confess your sins, and drink and eat his body and blood. Weird to me. Disco Tits, great name, says, I'm behind on the live, but wanted to say that I don't want a weak man scared of an imaginary friend to run my household. Actually, that's a very good point, Disco, because this whole idea that like men are supposed to be managing the household, shit. What if you got a guy that's a weak ass punk? You know what I mean? And Flo says, about to finish The Early History of God by Mark Smith. Amazing, very interesting, and helps clarify a lot of the Bible. Thanks for recommending the author. And Mark Smith is amazing. I can't say enough about his books. But yeah, The Early History of God is a great one. If you want more suggestions, let me know. Pat says, I love how Phil Bros forced to use logic to explain. Yeah, every time. All right, I got a couple more. Brianna sent a super chat, says, sorry I'm late. I was taking a nap, praise Doug. Well, listen, we love a good cat nap around here. I don't take them because I'm too high strung for that, but I'm glad you took them because they're healthy. Thank you for supporting. Space Lord says, the most Gentile level of hell is being forced to eat salty chips when you have a hangnail forever. I think that would be the appropriate level. I wonder where people get this idea of levels of hell, because it's not in the Bible. Amira sent one Deconstructing membership. Big W, Amira, I appreciate that. And Nightband coming in again says, this kid seems nice, but he is willfully indoctrinated, and it's like arguing with a wall. Well, to be fair, I think most theists, that's what arguing with them is like. And Tom says, Justin, I have an idea. We need to start an atheist Browns backer club because we have no faith anyways. I can park my Rock Doug based food truck, REO feed wagon, outside the bar on Sundays. Tom, I'm all for it. Send me a DM. Let's make this happen. Let's get some atheist barbecue tailgating going. I want to participate in this, friend. And Amir, thank you for the $10 super chat. Says, imagine the world if we could press a magic reset button and have all humans leave all religions behind in the history and fiction section. What we could do together if we didn't have those divisions. I agree, actually, Amir. I think the world would be better off without these religions. All they do is serve to hurt humanity. And just a couple more. Dave says, I love this show. I'm learning how to articulate my atheist arguments. Thank you for all you do, and especially your patience. Well, Dave, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I hope I can help. And my friend Rock Badger Cud, great to see you, says, been a while since I was able to catch you live. Praise be to Doug for the new schedule. Yeah. The next 6 weeks, we're going to be going live during the daytime. And Dave, thank you for the super thanks. And also Kenneth, my good friend, great to see you. Rest in peace, Diogo Jota. I don't actually know who that is. Now I have to find out who that is. Diogo Jota. Is that a soccer player? Yeah, rest in peace, my friend. I don't watch soccer, but I hate to hear of a human being passing. You know what I mean? And last one from Jim Nasty. Thank you so much for the super chat. It says, Creed is a shut-in that has never been touched except for his pocket girlfriend, shaped like a golden retriever. May him and his mouth of braces and rubber bands never know love, undeserved. Well, I think, remember, a lot of us were in this cult, Jim. I think there's hope for him. I think there's hope that he'll eventually leave the cult and will be able to be reformed and be an actual producing member of society. I have hope in this. All right, let me grab our next question. Our next guest. We're going to get someone from our TikTok queue. Looks like Squirrely Bran. How you doing, Squirrely?
Ayo, I'm doing fairly well. Yourself?
Doing good. Thank you for asking. Squirrely, are you at least 18 and are you a believer?
Oh yeah, I'm 28 and I'm a believer, but my belief kind of lands somewhere between Christianity and Buddhism. It basically when I read the Bible and was studying the things that Jesus did in his life, it seemed to loosely align with a lot of Buddhist concepts that I had also been reading at the time. So if you don't mind, could I just kind of describe my general belief of what God is, and you can give me the scrutiny after,
yes, I think that works, because I think your conception of God might be non-standard. So I'd love to know how you've concocted your belief system.
Absolutely. Okay, so basically, sorry. For me, I think that God is basically just the word for unconscious and conscious life. So basically, God is a formless, senseless, neutral force in life. So essentially, it's non-existence in and of itself is what God is. And
does it think?
No.
Oh,
it doesn't have the capacity to do anything. That's why we exist, because we are basically, our bodies are the tools for this consciousness to inhabit, to be able to experience the universe, because otherwise it would just be nothingness, because without senses to experience, there is nothing,
okay,
at all.
So, I mean, just a little brief update. I don't know if anyone's told you yet, but Squirrely, you're an atheist.
Fair enough. I mean, I kind of believe that that there is a force that's, I guess maybe so, but I kind of believe that there's a piece of this thing in each person, that we exist to experience life, and that's the purpose of God, that, we in and of ourselves are all God, trying to experience the universe, essentially.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like your God doesn't actually exist. Like if your God,
yes, okay, my bad then. Sorry.
right. So like, for example, what's the difference? If I said tomorrow, okay, if at midnight the clock strikes midnight and God, the God you're describing disappears, what's different at 12:01?
Well, I think it's more of if it disappears,
Mhm.
well, I guess in my concept, it's not that it it's just beyond human comprehension, I suppose. But if it was to disappear, I suppose what would happen is the pieces of it that exist in life would just recycle into the empty space. You know what I mean? And so
Well,
on and so forth as
if
new
it
life
didn't
is
exist,
created.
though, right? So if the clock strikes midnight and the God you believe in ceases to exist, and then we all wake up at 12:01, what do we notice? What's different than prior to midnight?
Nothing. That's
Right, yeah,
nothing
exactly.
at all.
So like if your God existing and your God not existing are virtually identical, it seems like adding the God notion into it is an unnecessary step.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely. That's because it's just like I might as well just say soul and be like, yeah, God doesn't exist. That's or just come up with another word for it other than it's just it's just a fake word to describe. It might as well be magic.
Because you could just be a true Buddhist and say I don't believe in a God at all, but I do believe in like the spirit world.
Right. Yeah. In life and in the spirits in life.
Right.
Interesting.
But at that point, you'd be an atheist because you don't believe in a God, and the spirit world technically would be a naturalistic phenomenon. It'd just be a part of the way things are. It's natural.
Interesting.
So you're just an atheist that believes in one other thing that most atheists don't believe in, which is spirits.
Huh. I guess that makes sense. Interesting.
Well, welcome to the club, buddy. We've got funny hats and lots of bacon.
Nice. That sounds like my kind of club.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks for coming up and sharing with me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's been great.
All right. Cheers, buddy.
All right. Cheers.
I do think that like Buddhism is a logically consistent position to be in. I like it. I don't think spirits exist, but I can see why many people would and why Buddhism takes that into account. Barber says this caller is delusional or extremely naive. I think you're referring to Creed, and he is a little bit naive, I suspect, my friend. Booget says, I'd recommend Bumbu rum. Pricey, but you'll like it. I haven't tried Bumbu rum, but I'll make a stop to the store in a couple weeks and pick some up when I run out of the Kraken. Thanks for the recommendation, Booget. And Nightman says, Malort tastes like erasers dipped in air freshener. So I've had this conversation with Sarah before. She knows it tastes horrible, but it's like a tradition in Chicago. So I have to at least try it. But then again, I mean, she would think that ketchup on hot dogs is horrible, and I disagree, Mardu, thank you for the $5 super thanks. I appreciate that, friend. Big W, great to see you. And also, Adam, my friend, great to see you as well. Says, being a Browns fan is rough, but at least you don't have to live with 28-3. Rise up, rock hard for Doug. We've had runs before that were as bad as 28-3. Or at least close to it. We had a stretch there where we didn't win a game for like 2 years. Danger Aware says, have you started 3D printing your copy of Respect My Personal Space game yet? Our asteroids are evidence of Doug. I actually don't know much about that game, but I did recently start doing some 3D printing. I've got some repairs for my old colonial house that I've been doing some prints for, like stuff that you can't find in the store anymore. So I am doing that. But no, I haven't printed any games. Match says, I draw the line. No one is smarter than Justin. Match, I hate to tell you, there's a lot of people smarter than me. And I mean a lot. I've worked with some people that make me look really dumb. Amir says, ChatGPT was probably like, dude, I can't help you with that stupid shit. I guess some fools say. I believe that. What that guest asks for is apologetics. Yep, that's exactly what happened. Yep. Chat GTP, give me a defense of my already held position. Match says sarcasm is the lowest form of wit. That guess I disagree, Match. Wit is the soul of comedy, and I believe that sarcasm is a version of wit. But listen, I appreciate your subjective opinion. And Space says no two real numbers are infinitely apart. I agree. Yeah, no two numbers and no two spots on the timeline are infinitely apart. And AR says, can we get a W guest emote for when one is good? You know what? AR, I've got one on TikTok. I'll add them to YouTube. Thank you for the suggestion. I'll add them up on both YouTube accounts. And Zeb, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. It says Christians love to say that an infinite regress is impossible, but don't Christians think that they will live forever in heaven? Do they not realize this contradiction? Well, they think that infinite regress in the future is okay, just not infinite regress in the past. So that's how they square that round peg. But none of them can really explain why that is the case. They just have a bunch of really bad examples for why that is the case. And just a couple more. Our friend Texas Panhandlers in the house, thank you, buddy, says definitions are subject to whether they move the apologist arguments forward or not. The apologist dictionary is revised hourly. Actually, you're not wrong. In fact, if you read like philosophical definitions, sometimes they don't even match what you find in church history. And the church history, they were engaging in philosophy. So Adam Anderson, thank you so much, my friend, for the $20 super chat. That's generous. Says, thanks for making work entertaining once again. Subjective and objective are hard concepts for Christians. They'll never get it. Praise Doug. I agree with you. That is my subjective opinion, that they'll never understand the difference between the two. And Gates of Delirium, my friend, says, imagine needing to appeal to God for is drinking bleach and dying bad. Yeah, pretty much. Isn't that the wild thing? Like, these people will say, I can't have morals or know what is good. Therefore, you need a God to know if drinking bleach is good or bad for you. It's crazy. Your trick says, cook on, brother. Love your content. What do you think is behind powerful supernatural experiences that theists claim to have? Well, I think it's delusion, quite honestly. I think psychosomatic effects. I think they're placebo effects and delusions, and people just interpreting things through their imagination. In fact, people with prefrontal cortex damage are more likely to have these spiritual experiences than not. It seems to be a product of the brain. Hammond says, is it possible that Jesus abolished the marriage of his disciples? It says you won't be married to your spouse in heaven. So that's not quite what's happening, Hammond. So in the passage, he's saying that in heaven there won't be marriage and giving in marriage. He's not saying that that is the case here on earth, just that's going to be the case in heaven. I presume because sex is dirty and sinful and there won't be any sex in heaven, so that means you don't need marriage anymore. And you're not going to be producing offspring, so what do you need marriage for? That's my take on it. Zach says, thank you for the super chat, by the way. That's very generous, friend. He says, don't want to burn? Better get a man in a dress and put a small amount of water on your head. You know, logic. Isn't that the craziest thing? That they think my worldview is illogical and immoral, but their worldview has no morals, just divine command theory. And that they think that sprinkling water on your head and saying a prayer makes you special. All right, next in the YouTube queue, it looks like it's Anthony coming in. I've got a couple people waiting on YouTube and TikTok. I'm going to try to get to everybody. Although, Anthony, I think your connection is poor because I tried to pull you in and it doesn't show that you're here. I think Anthony's got a bad connection. So we're going to hang up with Anthony and move on to the next. Looks like Kyle. How you doing, Kyle?
Hello?
Kyle, how you doing, bud?
You can hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I'm 39 years old, just to clarify.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming through my headset good? Okay. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one that talked about, like, the astral projection experience. Like, I wanted to, like ask you something. I won't take that much time, but just...
Yeah, go ahead. What's the question?
Just a little bit. But, well, do you remember whenever you said that these people couldn't turn around and look to, what was it again? Explain it one more time.
Yeah, so they did a laboratory experiment where they triggered people's out-of-body experiences, and then they wanted them to be able to turn around and describe what they saw. And the goal was to see something that was behind the person that they wouldn't be able to see unless they were turned around outside of their body. And nobody could ever do it. The same people in the experiment claimed that they left their body. They were 100% positive that they left their body, but they could never once validate what they saw outside of their body. So the test concluded that it's a hallucination.
Did they ever say what they saw specifically, or
Well,
what they saw?
the room was set up with observable things. Like they were told
Yes.
before the experiment, you need to turn around and you need to tell us what's behind you, right? So they don't
Yeah.
know what's behind them. They just know that there's something behind them, right? Then they triggered the out of body experience. They claim that they left their body, and then they're asked, "Did you see what was behind you?" And they didn't.
But did they ever say what they saw, like in the room specifically?
I forget. I mean, you can read the study if you want to hear their actual testimony of what they thought they saw, but the reality was nobody was able to validate what was behind them.
Well, see, when it happened to me, when I got out of my body, so to speak, like, and I had a white tether attached to my head, and like you see, I had just moved into this apartment, and I had slept there the first night, and I didn't bother to put up the bed or nothing, but I like slept on a what do you call that? A sleeping bag. I put a sleeping bag on the floor and slept on the floor. And whenever I woke up, I wondered what had happened. Like, now I had been trying to do this, been trying to astral project for like 2 years or 3 years, I think it was, ever since I was 25. It happened when I was 28, and I'm 39 now, so it was a pretty long time ago. But I still have it pretty well memorized in my head what happened. But what I'm getting at is that when it happened to me, the furniture, the chairs, the couches, everything that was in the apartment was all gone. Like everything had disappeared. And like what I'm getting is like whenever these people had these out of body experiences, whenever they tried to trigger it, my guess is what they saw is all their stuff will be gone. Like for me, that's what happened for me whenever I had it happen to me. I
But
guess, does that make sense?
if it disappeared, like if all your stuff disappeared, that's a hallucination. Because your stuff,
Yeah,
like physical objects, aren't in the habit of vanishing.
But then I've had dreams and lucid dreams where my stuff would still be there, though.
Yeah, I have lucid dreams as well, friend.
Yeah. Are you sure? Like, I mean, that's. I guess that's the gist of it. Just that these people couldn't do it because they couldn't turn around.
It's an easy task. All you got to do is turn around, and they can't do it.
Maybe I need to try to go to this place and try to do it to see. Did they use any psychedelic drugs or anything like that to make them have that experience?
There's been a couple ways that they did it. So they've done using deep brain stimulation.
God helmet.
I mean, they do deep brain stimulation as one method, and then another method is usually like DMT. And both methods produce what we would call spiritual experiences. And there are alternative methods that are dangerous. And a lot of people, we've talked about this before, so a lot of people in the chat know what I'm talking about. But like when I was a kid, we used to play a game where you would like hyperventilate and get all the, the oxygen out of your body, and then someone would like squeeze you until you pass out. And it causes hallucinations while you're passed out. In fact, we used to, my brother and one of my sisters used to do it for fun when we were kids. And one of my sisters had a hallucination when she passed out that scared her, and she quit. She's like, "Nope, I'm never doing that again." And I can't tell you what I just saw, but it was terrifying. And so, like, the brain has a pretty good capacity of hallucinating when you mess up the brain.
But I'm doing it through meditation though, like doing the meditative state is whenever it happened to me. Whenever I would sit down and I would just meditate and try to like calm my mind and become as calm as possible, like as relaxed as possible. That's the way I've been doing it though.
Right. No, there's lots of ways you can get into a brain state, right? But the question is whether or not while you're in that brain state, you can actually objectively do something that's provable. And no one can seem to do it.
Well, I think I'm gonna hop down. Thank you though.
Some things to think about, friend. Thanks for coming by, Kyle.
To think about. Oh, what was that? Will you send me the link to that study on Discord, please?
I'll send it to you. Send me a message on Discord for the link. I'll send you a couple of different links.
Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers, friend.
Bye-bye. I'm going to keep watching.
Certainly, if you're the one having the experience, it feels super real. I get it. I really do. AG, my friend, great to see you. Thank you so much for the hand hearts, AG. I appreciate that. Guys, if you're not following AG, make sure you drop AG a follow. AG, you're going to be live today? I'm going to be, my stream ends at 5. So I'm going to be popping around and watching some other lives here in a little while. Small Johnson, my friend, good to see you. Says, I think Creed is an actual Christian. I've heard him on Joel's live before. Talked to Joel about him. Also, good to see you in the day. Well, thank you so much, Small Johnson. It's great to see you. I hope you're doing well. I don't know if you're at work, but I hope you're having a good time at work if you are, in fact, there. Oh, AG, you just ended the live? Okay. Okay. Jimmy says, which would you bet on, Bible or the Anunnaki myth? I mean, I think they're the same, but in terms of truthfulness, it depends on which part of the Bible. Some parts of the Bible are actually retelling history. So like the Book of Kings, a lot of stuff in the Book of First and Second Kings actually happened. You know what I mean? Brianna says, I believe that Jesus was just a Jewish rabbi, unalived for blasphemy, never rose, never was the Messiah, never was God. Actually, Brianna, I'm with you. That's my belief. I think Jesus really existed. I think he was a Jewish teacher, maybe a mystic even, and he convinced a lot of people that he was the Messiah, and he wasn't. William, thank you for the $10 super chat. Says, why do Christians believe in free will? Well, they have to, right? Because then you don't have choice, right? Says, how can free will exist in with an all-knowing God? Exactly. Yeah. If he knows everything, then there isn't anything you can do that he didn't know was going to happen. So, William, there's the reason why Christians get around this is they'll say, well, God only knows because he's in all time points. So he knows what you're going to do because he already saw you doing it, right? It was your choice. He saw you doing it. But that doesn't work because it doesn't take into account that God created all things. He created all the reality. And when he created reality, he knew how reality would play out. Like he knew I would be here sitting in front of a screen today. And if he knew that and he still chose to create that reality, that means I'm only here because of the reality he created that caused an inevitable chain of causes up to me being here right now. So we don't really have free will. Jam and Jay says Thor may have lightning bolts, but Doug is ground. Doug is all grounding. Like the grounding for everything is Doug. The grounding for the ground is Doug. That's all there is to it. JM, my good friend, thank you so much for the $100 super chat. Big W. Let's get W's in the chat for my friend JM. It's been a minute since I've seen you, buddy. I hope you're doing well. JM says, hi, Justin. Over 50,000 YouTube subscribers. We're there, buddy. Congratulations, sir. Cheers. Thank you, Justin. I really appreciate that. And also, if you're a member on YouTube, we have Patreon now. You can join on Patreon to get access to the deconstruction cheat sheet. Remember to utilize that. I'll be updating it this week. There should be some good tidbits on there. And Rock Hard for Doug says, you recently posted an exceptional video on Daniel. Do you have any scholarly books you'd recommend for me to do a deep dive? Thanks. I would get the Hermenia commentary series by John J. Collins. It's an excellent commentary on the book of Daniel. Is one of the best. In fact, if you go to all the modern academic study Bibles and see who's doing the study notes for the book of Daniel, it's almost always John J. Collins. He's the boss. So I would buy John J. Collins's commentary on the book of Daniel. He's going to go deep. Once you get through that, I got some more, buddy. But good question. And JM gifting out 20 Deconstruction Zone memberships. Big W, friend. Big W. I really appreciate that. That really helps. Subscribers are the backbone of the channel. It's one of the things that really helps keep everything oiled and running. And also Holofurfy sending out 20 DZ debate memberships. Big W, Holofurfy. I really appreciate it. It's very generous. Guys, the memberships really do help the channel survive. So thank you so much for everyone who's a member. And we've got, it looks like next in line is going to be Yahosha, and then Moses is what we've got going on here. So let's get our next guest into the queue or into the guest box. Oh, Yehoash. Sorry. How you doing, Yehoash?
I'm doing good.
Yehoash, are you at least 18, and do you believe in some kind of a God?
Yep. I am 22, and Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior. He died for your sins.
Cool. And what would be the most compelling evidence or argument that the Christian God is real?
Well, first of all, I I don't follow religion. I don't follow Christianity. Second of all, is yeah, I used to be a lukewarm Christian like you. I'm assuming that you were a lukewarm Christian in your
No,
life.
you'd be completely wrong. I was
You was
not a
never a Christian.
lukewarm Christian. I was a Christian for 20 years. I was so committed to Christianity that I went to Bible college and seminary. I was involved in ministry for over 10 years because I took it that seriously. I passed up all kinds of well-paying jobs to do what I did because I was so committed to the cause. So it sounds like you might be lukewarm, but I never was.
Okay, so first is you have to go into college for a Bible. That's you don't got to do that. Absolutely not.
Actually, you
So
do. If you're going to
that's
be a Bible expert, if you're going to teach the Bible in front of human beings, you should actually have the
no,
prerequisites
you
to
don't.
make you able to do that. You need to know the history. You need to know the
You could read
languages.
the
You need to know the culture that the Bible is written in. And my guess is because you're lukewarm, you're not willing to do
I'm
that.
not a lukewarm.
You sound lukewarm
I'm not
already.
lukewarm.
You sound soft. You sound like a
Okay.
soft Christian.
Okay. So can I let me resume. Okay, so you don't have to go to a college to read the Bible.
No one said you
One.
do.
And second, I say that you were lukewarm is because you were still in a sin, right? And
No,
you were
wrong.
so-called.
You'd be wrong.
So you never had sex before marriage while you was doing that?
I'm sure I committed sins before. I committed sins as a Christian, just like you did. I'm sorry. Do you not commit sins?
I never said I never committed sins.
Oh,
but
okay.
I-
So
but
as it turns out, Christians do commit sins, including yourself. And you just said that because you think I committed sins, I must be lukewarm. So I would say by the same token that you're
no,
lukewarm
I'm
as well.
saying in terms of like let's say me,
This is the worst
I
argument I've heard
would
in a long
say
time.
I would say like a white lie maybe. That's still a sin, a white lie if you really go deep and read the Bible. But
So you've never committed
but
never committed a grave sin?
I mean all sins are equal
Mm.
as just like the
Then
Bible
why are you
says.
pulling out the white lie? If all sins are equal, why do you care if it's a white lie or if it's murder?
No, I'm just saying. I'm just saying what I did, just to say, yeah, I did sin. But the
Well,
thing about sin
don't
is,
minimize it.
it is the importance of repentance, turning from your sins. That's why I said, what I'm hearing from your story and what I'm hearing for what you're preaching on TikTok is you were a Christian and then you turned from faith because
Because it's not true.
I'm
Do
just
you want to
getting
actually see
lukewarm.
why it's not true?
I'm just getting lukewarm Christian, honestly. But
I think you're
with
just
me,
you're just getting I'm getting a fact that you're just an uneducated dude that probably thinks he's a Hebrew.
I am not a Hebrew Israelite actually.
Just checking.
So that's
Okay,
one.
so
Okay, so second.
so let's
Can I talk
start.
about my testimony?
No one cares about your testimony. I want to hear like a
Okay.
good evidence or argument for why your God is real. No one cares about your preaching.
Okay, so like I said before, I used to be a lukewarm Christian. I was raised
Nope.
in the church or
No
whatever.
one cares about your
I was
testimony.
never. Well, you're saying why I believe in God. So
Is your
I
testimony
don't
the
know
only
why.
thing you have?
You're gonna let me explain because it's basically.
Well, it's a yes or
it's
no
its own
question.
person.
Is your testimony the only proof you have?
Yes.
Oh,
Because it's
okay.
with-
Then I'll just move on to the
because
next guest.
It is a relationship. It is not a religion. That's something you
Yep.
hadn't met.
No one cares. All right, we're going to move on to an adult. No one cares about your testimony, people. Your testimony is meaningless. Every religion has them. Also, Mike, thank you for the super chat. It says Phil Bros, Big Brain, the keys of the universe. The keys of the universe are also in the book of bad cosmology, flat Earth, striped offspring. Oh yeah, Jacob's magical striped offspring and magic. Yeah, isn't that funny that Phil Bros will do all this work to like invent their God into reality, but they will refuse to actually read the book that denies that God's existence, that contradicts the philosophical notion of God they came up with. And Mike says the bad sarcasm joke was probably sarcasm. Sorry, I missed it. Sorry. When you're doing multiple things up here on the stream, sometimes you miss things. So it's my bad, Mike. I apologize for that. And BPA says, mind you, the quote is sarcasm is the lowest form of wit, but the highest form of intelligence. I actually don't know the full quote, BPA. I thank you for setting the record straight But my position is that sarcasm and puns are funny. You don't have to agree. That's just my opinion. Keith X, my friend, thank you for the super chat, says, doesn't thinking an omniscient conflict since thinking means coming up with or obtaining knowledge previously not known? So I think obtaining knowledge, yes. And I agree with you. This is why God outside of time and space being all knowing doesn't make sense, because a God who already knows all things doesn't actually think. Thinking is a process that we engage in, and you can't actually engage in processes outside of time. Doesn't work. You need cause and effect. With no time, no cause and effect. Ben Hook says, where did the name Jehovah for God come from? It comes from a tradition from the Masoretic scribes. Good question, Ben. So the Masoretic scribes didn't want you to pronounce the name Yahweh. So when they added vowels to the text, a lot of times what they would do, like you'll see this in Exodus chapter 6, they would add the vowels for Adonai, meaning Lord, or Adonai, meaning my Lord. They would add vowel pointers into it that would indicate, like, hey, say Adonai rather than saying Yahweh, right? But what happens is a lot of people came later who didn't know that was the situation, and they read it and they're like, oh, it's Jehovah. Like, no, fucking, it's not Jehovah. So you're not part of this tradition. You have no idea what's happening. So no, God's name isn't Jehovah. Plus, also remember that God's name wasn't written with vowels initially; they were implied vowels. So you have to use the implied vowel grammar rule book, and it don't get you to Jehovah. Burner says, thanks for making that last half of work bearable. Well, Burner, thank you so much for watching. I'm glad that you're here, and thank you for supporting the channel. I do appreciate that. And also, we got some new members of the Kraken crew. Welcome in Sin, and welcome in Viper. And Viper, thank you so much for sending out 20 more DZ Debate gifted memberships. I really appreciate that, friend. Big W. And anyone who got one of those memberships has access to the DZ cheat sheet. Highly recommend it. 3 more super chats, and we get our next guest in here. OG Lilith, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Says, wow, poor Creed. I had to slide back because I came in after he was on, so I had to slide back. It was like he just got hit by a catapulted Doug. I think you're right, actually. Seriously, I hope that sinks in for him. Well, I suspect it will. Creed sounds like a sincere young man, does he not? So thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that, Lilith. Good to hear from you. And Richard Cox, amazing name. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Says, thank you for all you do. Well, I appreciate that, Richard. Thank you for supporting, and thank you for being a member. I see a little member badge. Big W, friend. And my friend Kenneth coming in again with $36.99 AED says, a guy called Sam Shamoon, rebuttal on the fulfill the law verse by reading further. It's weak because slavery isn't addressed. How do we counter him? Only a handful of laws got an update. Need more. Well, I don't know what you mean. I haven't heard Sam Shamoon's argument on this particular passage, but the reality is if you just read verses 18 and 19, he tells you explicitly, anyone who teaches others not to follow the law will be called least in the kingdom of heaven, and those who do the law and teaches others to do the law will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. It's just a blanket statement. God is pro law of Moses. And Kyle says, I think it's funny how David's 10 wives that he already had couldn't keep him warm at night. Yeah, with the story of Abishag. One of the number one things in this book that makes me say the book is a load of nonsense. I agree. The story of Abishag's crazy. Not just that it's a crazy story, that we know there were people in the ancient world that read the story and was like, oh yeah, that checks out. That makes sense. Oh, come on. You gotta be kidding me. All right, let's get Moses in the guest box now. Although Moses's connection looks like it broke because I can't actually pull Moses into the guest box. He was here a minute ago. There he is. Welcome in, Moses. Moses, I don't think you have your microphone set up. I'll send a request for your EP, see if that works. If you're talking, we can't hear you. Right? There you go. Welcome in. I think you just got a slow connection.
I'm okay.
Moses, are you at least 18
Hello?
and are you a believer?
What? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Moses, do you have Wi-Fi? Because your connection's pretty spotty.
Yeah, I do have Wi-Fi.
It'd be helpful if you can connect to the Wi-Fi. The Holy Spirit connection is pretty weak.
I'm not a Christian. I'm an atheist.
Oh well, shit, buddy. We're debating Christians and Muslims and Jews and Hindus and what do you?
Oh,
Did you have a question?
I was just calling to. I was calling to appreciate your work, the way you're reaching us back here in Kenya.
Well, I appreciate you stopping by to thank us and saying hello. And, you know, we're going to do as much as we can. You know, obviously, I believe that religion is a net negative for humanity, and I want humanity to thrive.
Me too. Me too. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, Moses. Great to hear from you, buddy. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Oh, W. Moses, nice guy. Okay, we'll get our next guest into the queue. It looks like it's going to be Mania was in the queue first. And Ellis Campana says, caller needs to find out some of the big boy sins. Some are hella fun, actually. There are some sins that are hella fun. It makes you wonder how some of these sins got invented. Thank you for the hand hearts, Roddy. It's great to see you, friend. Well, Mania might not be able to connect. They were in here for a while, so I feel bad they waited all this time. We'll give Mania a second to connect so we don't end up in the end of the line after waiting all this time. Sam Mayberry, thank you for the $5 super chat, friend. Says divine command theory isn't a valid moral system. It's merely a set of orders. So that's actually my point. Divine command theory isn't objective morals. It's not objective at all. And it's also not a moral framework. It's, you know, do what I say or you like horrible things happen. That's it. That's all it is. And I don't see why I'm obliged to even care. Like, why am I morally obligated to do what you tell me just because you're the most powerful thing and you could do bad things to me? Like, I don't see how that entails an obligation. Okay. Well, the guest couldn't make it, so we'll move on to our next guest, which is God is Real. I think I've talked to God is Real before. Welcome in, God is Real. Hello.
What's up, man?
Welcome
What's
back.
up, man?
God is Real. Are you at least 18 and are you a believer?
Yes, I'm a believer.
Right. And what God do you believe in?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes. Yeah, what was the question?
What God do you believe in?
Oh, Jesus, man. You know the one you guys ate? That's the
I don't
one.
hate him. I don't think he exists. Okay. So what would be the most compelling evidence or argument for Jesus slash the Trinity being God?
Me seeing angels.
I'm sorry, what?
I've seen his angels.
You need to see a better
So that's
connection
my
because your connection's
compelling.
already breaking up. How come God will give you a vision of angels, but he won't give you Wi-Fi?
No, it's not a vision. I've seen it with my natural eyes.
Oh, yeah. What do they look like?
They were glowing.
Oh, glowing what?
White lights in the form of glowing in the form of a human.
But I don't know if you're like opening a pack of Oreos over there or what, but you're making a lot of noise. Don't
Sorry,
eat.
I'm at the
Please don't
bank,
eat
but
while
I'm
you're on live
still.
stream.
No, I'm at the bank. I'm counting out
You're eating
money
at the
that
bank?
God bless me with. No, I'm counting out money.
Well, congratulations. So the question is, what do these angels look like? How many legs do they have?
2.
2 legs. How many arms?
2.
How many eyeballs?
There were no features.
They have no eyeballs?
They had no features.
So they had no eyeballs. You know, I can hear you eating.
You can say that. I'm not eating, bro. I'm being honest. I'm not
I
eating.
literally hear you doing it. Now you're just lying.
Bro, I've said I'm not eating. I'm counting money, man.
Yeah,
You
I'm
don't
sure
hear
you
the
are.
you don't hear you don't hear the machine going off?
No, I don't.
All right.
So anyways, they didn't have any eyes. What about a nose? Did they have noses?
No features.
Oh, okay. What about hair?
No.
No hair. Okay.
No features,
Well,
just light.
if they have arms and legs, those are features. You know that, right?
If they have what?
Arms and legs. What do they need arms and legs for, by the way?
I don't know. That's the way I saw them.
Well,
It was
but
in the middle of the day.
but they don't need them, right? They don't need arms and legs.
Why you say they don't need them?
What are they going to use them for?
They use them to stand up.
On what?
I mean, on what? They just use them to stand up.
Why?
Yeah,
They can float. They can fly. They don't need legs to stand up.
yeah, but they gotta have some feature. Birds have legs, right? But they can fly, right?
So birds
So
are
what's the
angels?
sense you're making?
Do
No,
angels
you
get
said they have
tired?
legs and they can float.
Do angels
Birds
get
can fly,
tired?
but they got legs. Don't try to divert. Birds have
Do
legs, but don't they
angels
fly?
get tired?
I don't know of that.
Yeah, okay. So they can float, they can fly. I would be inclined to believe that they don't get tired, being that they don't have a physical body. And part of getting tired is dependent on physiology. So it's weird that they would have legs that they need to rest on the physical earth with when they don't get tired and they don't actually need to rest and they don't actually need the earth to even be there for them to be on it. But
I think you're moving the goalpost. I just proved that.
you didn't.
My best argument is that I've seen angels. Now
That's
you're
not even a good
going
argument.
into physics. You're
What I'm
going
doing
into
is
physics. Now
demonstrating
we're
the
not talking
silliness of
about
your
physics.
hallucinations. Your hallucination
Yeah.
demonstrates that you probably need to see a medical
Okay.
doctor. But listen,
So how do you know that?
I don't think you're real, by
How
the
do you
way.
know that?
I don't think you're a real person. And I don't want to hear you eating or counting your money anymore. So I want to move on to someone with substance. I find it hard to believe that you're a real person. All right, let me move on to the next guest. I think it's going to be Anthony, and we'll see if Anthony can connect. Fry, good to see you, my friend. Fry says my Lutheran pastor was named Richard Kling. Well, you know what his nickname was. Did you refer to his kids as dicklings? I had to do it. I had to. I don't know what to tell you. I have to do it. I'm a degenerate. That's all there is to it. Doji, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that, friend. Big W. It says, these callers are why grifters like Kenneth Copeland are so successful. Have you all seen his house? The most successful scammers in the world fly on wings of Christianity. Yeah. All these televangelists are grifters. They have fake degrees. They lie about their education. They lie about their knowledge. They lie about their taxes and their finances. If you go to a mega church and your pastor drives a Mercedes or flies in a plane or has a mansion, just know that you've been duped. You've been duped in the most embarrassing of ways. And I would feel bad for you if you weren't a full-grown adult capable of doing your own research and using common sense. If you were a teenager, I would feel bad for you because you're still learning as a teenager. Full-grown adults know that people who claim to hear from magic men in the sky don't need your money. They certainly don't need jets or private mansions or private planes or anything of that nature. Delta, welcome in. How you doing? Delta?
Yes, hi.
Welcome in, Delta. Delta, are you at least 18 and are you a believer?
Yes, I'm a believer in Christ.
Cool. And what would be the most compelling evidence or argument for the Christian God being real?
Well, I had a question for you because you said that religion has a negative.
That's adorable that you think that, but you're going to answer my question first. Once we get through the initial phase of questioning, then you can ask a question. So, what would be the most compelling evidence or argument for the Christian God being real?
History.
Okay, can you flesh that out? What about history proves the Christian God being real?
Well, Jesus Christ is the person who has been written about and documented the most.
So
throughout history, our shared history.
So does somebody popular mean that what they say is true?
Well, do you believe in George Washington?
Yeah, I believe Jesus existed. No one's questioning his existence here. I'm saying if somebody is popular, does that mean everything they say is true?
No.
Okay. Now, so we agree that Jesus is popular. We agree that he existed as a human being. I'm trying to find a reason why I would believe that he's the Messiah, or he's part of a Trinity, or he's God, or anything like that.
Because he out of anybody else that you can think of was able to resurrect himself from the dead.
Oh, prove it. Because I know a bunch of people from Jesus' time period
Part of history.
and prior to Jesus that resurrected from the dead.
What year is it?
It happens to be 2023 if you're on the American calendar, if you're on the Chinese calendar, or the Jewish calendar. If you're on the Jewish calendar or the non-Christian calendar, you're going to have actually a different date. So I know this is already not going to go well for you if you think that AD and BC are good arguments. So you are aware that the Julian calendar came before the Gregorian calendar, was nearly identical to the Gregorian calendar. Pope Gregory only slightly shifted the Julian calendar. You know that, right?
Can I ask you a question since you've asked me so many?
Are you going to answer my question? Are you aware that the way we're counting years right now is based on Pope Gregory in the middle of the 15th century, who just slightly tweaked the Julian calendar?
No, I would like to ask you one question. Is that okay?
Okay, so you're not aware of this. Cool.
I didn't say that, although I am not aware of that. But I don't care what that means, because I asked you what year we're in.
2025. I think we all know on the accounting system of years within the American system and even in the European system, it's the year 2025. If you're on the Jewish calendar, it's like 5700.
Can I get these words out of your mouth? You think that Christianity is a net negative on the world?
I think over the course of history, Christianity has been a net negative. You heard me say it once. I don't know why you need to hear it a second time.
Ask AI that. Ask AI if Christians
Why do I give a shit about what AI says?
Have been the biggest proponents.
AI went like a year without knowing how many R's were in the word strawberry. I sure as hell don't care about its opinion on whether or not it's a net negative or a net negative or net positive for society. AI, I don't know if you know this, AI is not a source either.
You're not even thinking about what I'm saying.
I am. I'm thinking about what you're saying. I'm saying that the source you're relying on is embarrassing. If you think asking AI a question validates your God being real, you're even more confused than the last caller.
Okay, so if somebody comes into your house, rapes your whole family, kills your pets, is that good or bad?
Well, in my worldview, it's bad.
Okay.
Is it bad in your worldview?
No, but what if your neighbor?
It's not bad in your worldview?
No, it is, of course.
Oh, okay, and why is it bad in your worldview?
I have a foundation of morals to stand on.
Okay, so it's bad in your worldview because what?
Because Christ came and he fulfilled the commandments.
That has nothing to do with moral law. Like, why is it bad to have someone's wife raped? Why is that bad?
Because God tells us that it is.
Okay, so God wouldn't do anything to cause women to be raped?
God wouldn't do anything to be caught. What?
Would God do anything? Would God act in a way that would cause women to be raped?
No.
No, interesting. Do you think that women that are caught in war have consent?
In a war between who?
Between two nations. If nation A goes to war with nation B, and nation A takes women's captives, like they kidnap. Delta,
it's not word, brother.
Delta, you can't answer questions while you're talking, so pay attention. If nation A and nation B go to war together, nation A wins the war. They kidnap the women. They kill everybody but the women, right? They just take the women captive, maybe even the children.
It would not be able to be called bad.
Delta, shut up. You can't answer my question until you hear the damn question. Get some of the Holy Spirit patience and wait for the question to be finished. So if nation A and nation B go to war and nation A kidnaps the women, do those women who are war captives, do they have consent? So if like a dude in the army kidnaps a woman and says, I want to marry you, does the woman actually have consent in that situation?
Wait, repeat that last thing you asked.
If a woman is kidnapped from her home in a war, and the guy who kidnaps her says, I want to marry you, does she actually have consent?
Yes, of course. She should not be put in that situation.
Then you haven't answered the question appropriately.
Whatever
Do prisoners
courage
have
or-
consent?
Prisoners should only be prisoners based on consequences of
Nope,
things that
not
they're
an answer to my question. I said, do prisoners possess the capability of consent?
It depends on where they're prisoners at and what their laws are.
They've been captured in war. Do
Where?
they have the ability to consent as captives, as prisoners?
To consent to what?
To the union. Were you listening to anything I said, or were you just talking the whole time?
Oh man, I'm listening.
Okay, I'll start from the beginning. Put your listening ears on this time. If a country goes to war, country A and country B, country A kidnaps all the women. A guy from country A says, listen, I kidnapped these women. Delta, stop fucking talking. You can't answer the question if you're talking over me. Stop it. Okay, so I'm going to mute you. I'm going to mute you because you're not adult enough to follow. Okay, this is your problem now. So country A goes to war with country B. Country A kidnaps a bunch of women. They have taken captives. They said, you are now my captive, right? So imagine there's a warrior now with a couple captive women. And he says, you're really hot. I'm going to marry you. In that situation, does the woman that he pointed to and he wants to marry, does that woman actually have consent? Yes or no?
Consent to say no and refuse the marriage.
Does she have consent?
No, she doesn't. In that situation.
And exactly, in that situation, Delta, she does not have consent. And why is that the case?
Because we live in a fallen world.
No, she doesn't have consent because she's a prisoner. She is a captive.
Right. And the only reason that we can innocent people in those situations.
Delta, no one cares about your preaching. We're talking about a specific scenario.
That you were a big Christian back then.
Okay, we're going to mute you since you can't actually follow. Okay, now the reason why I gave you the analogy is because it's directly analogous to laws that God gives. God, if you've actually read the Bible, which I know you haven't, because you walked right into this one. God says, when you go to war against your enemies and the Lord your God hands them over to you and you take them captive, suppose you see among the captives a beautiful woman whom you desire and want to marry. So you bring her home to your house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails, discard her captive's garb, and remain in your house a full month, mourning her father and mother. After that, you may go into her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. So now, according to what you told me prior, Delta, women that are captured in war don't actually have consent. And when you sleep with somebody who doesn't have consent, what do we call that?
Rape.
Okay.
Rape.
Now, so what we find in Deuteronomy 21 is God commanding the Israelites to rape women.
Yeah, but you're bringing back part of the Old Testament.
It doesn't matter if it's Old Testament or New Testament. Did God command it?
This is a life.
Did God command it?
This is before Christ
Did
existed.
God command it?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, that means God commanded his soldiers to rape women. That's the logical entailment of the argument that we just did, which means your God is disgusting, and you need to actually read your book. It's clear you haven't read your book. No, just so you know, Delta, no one can hear you when you're talking when I'm talking, by the way. I don't know if you know this. I'll say it for your benefit and for everyone else's benefit. If you talk while I'm talking, there's no chance in hell, not a snowball's chance in hell, that anyone's ever going to hear you, because your microphone is quieter than mine. And then also on top of that, your connection sucks. So if you want to have like a real dialogue, you should probably wait till like I'm done talking to say your stuff, because no one can hear what you're saying. and he dropped or his connection gave way. One of the two. His connection was dog shit. I assume he just ran away. So it is what it is. What are we gonna do? You know what I mean? He walked literally. He walked.
Are you there?
Oh, he came back. All right.
Sorry, I switched to Wi-Fi to
Welcome.
make sure that.
Welcome back.
Okay. So, do you believe abortion? Was my question.
Abortion has nothing to do with whether or not your God is real.
No, it's because you're making it seem like what my God has done in the past is so terrible. But I want to know what you allow in this world. Do you believe in abortion?
My opinion on abortion is irrelevant to your God.
Anybody who has the pride to question what God does in the sense of Jesus Christ and the Gospels, he came to. You know how Jesus Christ was when he lived in the world, and
he was a liar and a fraud. I know.
He called them vipers and snakes.
He was a liar and a fraud. I know. Yeah, Jesus was a fraud.
How was he a liar? Tell me how he was a liar, please.
Because he claimed to be the Messiah and he wasn't.
How do you know that he's not the Messiah?
Because the Old Testament tells us what the Messiah is going to do, and he didn't do any of it. And it's very clear, Delta, that he's not the Messiah. All he had to do is actually read the book, which you clearly haven't done.
I read the book, obviously.
You certainly have not read the book. What messianic prophecy did he fulfill?
Even when he was speaking on the cross, when he was dying and being crucified, he said, Father, Father, why have you forsaken me? And that's directly out of Psalms.
It's not even a prophecy. Psalm 22 is not a prophecy. Try again.
You need to read the Old Testament.
I have 2 degrees. I have 2 degrees in biblical studies, both concentrating in the Old Testament. So try again. Psalm 22 is not a prophecy, Delta.
You'll be back.
No, I won't.
Do you believe in abortion?
Again, I'm not going to let you pivot. I don't know why you keep thinking I'm going to let you pivot. So, like, I know you're terrified of discussing your actual book, but I know you're
promote sexuality.
I know you're terrified of actually addressing your book, and you just want to crash out on your bad political talking points. But we're not going to do that, right? So, we're going to keep talking about your book. Either you're willing to talk about your book or you're not. But I'm not going to let you pivot to political talking points. That's not what we do here. So
life, brother.
He's still talking. He can't help himself. All right. Well, listen, you can't be an honest interlocutor. And you obviously don't want to have a conversation with why you don't stop talking. So I'm just going to go ahead and he's still talking the whole time. All right. Well, I'm just going to cut you now. And you can go cry about it later. Okay. And that goofball is gone. We'll get our next one in the guest box. Mike Chang says, it's really hard to give a good definition of nothing or non-existence. It's really hard to beat timeless, spaceless, immaterial, uncaused. Thanks, Phil Bros. It's amazing. Like, once you've defined God with these characteristics, the God is completely unfalsifiable, completely untestable, which means if there's no way for me to prove your God wrong, there's no way for you to prove your God right. I could simply just insert anything. I can insert Doug or the life-granting unicorn. Like, if we're just saying, here's an unfalsifiable thing that fixes the problem I have, there's a lot of things I could put in there. Kenneth, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, there's a verse which says if a woman makes an oath, the husband or father can cancel it. Yeah, that's in Leviticus. It says based on marital status or numbers. Shit, I forget. But you're right. Yeah. The book is called The Bible. Amazing. Yeah. Isn't it crazy that a woman's voice, a woman's pledge, it doesn't actually matter? You still need your father to okay that shit. If the Bible's not the most misogynistic book ever written, I don't know what is. Maybe Project 2025. Russell, thank you for the super chat. It says if Jesus was buried 6 feet underground, maybe Christianity wouldn't exist. No, I don't think so. I don't think they even knew when he was buried. I think most of what we know about Jesus was in fact made up mythology, just like the other Roman and Greek mythologies of other dying and rising, deities, or the Caesars that ascended into heaven as God. Mark says, why do theists not do basic research? Actually, I think it's that's why they're still theists, is because they haven't done any research. The reality is they're lazy. They don't want to know what's true. They want to know what reinforces their already held belief because they're just not honest. And Kay, thank you for coming in. Good to see you. Kay says, Justin, did you hear about the Newsboys Michael Tate situation? Yeah, I did a video on it like a week or two ago. I was a huge Newsboys fan back in high school. Well, I loved the Newsboys with Peter Furler. I hated the Michael Tate version of Newsboys. That being said, I actually knew people who worked with Michael Tate and they all said he was a prick. So I'm not at all surprised that Michael Tate is in some hot water right now. Not at all surprised, even in the slightest. I never saw him in a good light. Kyle, thank you for the 25 over Venmo. I really appreciate that, Kyle. Big W. But yeah, Michael Tate, not a shocker. Not a shocker. Nordic Spice, thank you for the $10 super chat. Says, hi, pal. I'm loving what you do. Chris Hitchens, the GOAT. Put the icing on the cake for me. You, for me, have carried the torch. What do you think it would take to rid this world of religion? I think it's a long, long process of critical thinking and probably science. Here's what I think. I think we're going to get to a point where the bucket can no longer hold water. And I'm going to tell you what I think that point is. When we finally find intelligent life, either on another moon or another planet or somewhere like that, when we finally find it, other intelligent life, I think these religions become nonsense. People are like, what the fuck? If God's Bible tells us that we're special, we're unique, but now we're finding these other characters on other planets, I think that's the end for religion. I think it's toast. At that point, you got to invent something new. Robin, thank you for the $10 super chat, friend. Says, I haven't heard every one of your live streams. I've never heard a woman on that struggle. I got to say this again. I haven't heard every one of your live streams. I have never heard a woman on that struggles with questions on bodily autonomy. Has there been one? So, Robin, this is a good question. I see what you're saying now. So on the topic of bodily autonomy, I almost always only bring it up with men because men will double down on that shit and show how vile they are. I've touched on it before a little bit with women, and most of them, not all of them, most of them see the problem, right? But I have some really conservative fundamentalist women that will come in here and be like, no, that's what God said. That's the way it has to be. And just, it hurts. It hurts every time I hear it. It's painful to hear. It does happen, just not as much. Sonus, my friend, great to see you all the way from Argentina. Thank you so much for the 500 ARS, friend. Very generous. Says extended 4th of July barbecue. It really is. If Doug is piezoelectric, obviously he must be, Zeus stories might come from his sparks. Praise Doug. Actually, the piezoelectric phenomenon is one of my favorite in electricity. There's so many things that operate on piezoelectric forces, including sensors, energy conduction. It's such an amazing thing. Like if you thought electricity was cool and you're listening right now, just Google YouTube the piezoelectric effect and see all the ways that it gets used in modern society. It's foundational. It's amazing. Praise Doug for the piezoelectric effect. Praise Doug. And Dade Murphy, thank you so much for being a member for 6 months. 6 months, Dade. I really appreciate that. Says, I have a hankering for the taste of honey from the entrails of freshly torn apart lion. Says Samson. It sounds delicious. It's a very plausible story. And last one from Killen says, God gave the recipe for abortion. If that guy had read the book, he wouldn't bring abortion into the conversation. So I wanted to keep him on the book because you're right. In Numbers chapter 5, God gives you a recipe for doing abortions. As long as the baby's a bastard, you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, if he had the patience to have actual dialogue, we could have cooked him on that, but he didn't have the patience for it. Hex, welcome in. Hex, are you at least 18? Oh, Hex, you got to be at least 18. You sound like you're 5.
Well, I have...
Nope, sorry. 18 or older. We don't do children here. We leave that up to the Catholic priests. Fry, you nailed it. Yeah. Could you comment on Numbers 5, 11 through 22 about the ordeal of bitter waters? Yeah. So it results in a miscarriage. I think the confusion is because in most translations and also in the Hebrew, it's not exactly clear. There's an idiomatic usage. It says in a lot of English, it's her thigh will rot or it will fall away. So the verbiage that's being used in the Hebrew Bible is they almost very rarely will they come out and say genitalia. Like they're not going to come out and say penis or vagina, right? They're not going to say that, right? So they always use euphemisms like the thigh, right? So when it says that the thigh is going to fall away, it seems to be implying that the uterus or the organs are going to discharge. It says that. And if that's the case, if the woman's pregnant, if she's been unfaithful, now she's pregnant, that means there's going to be a miscarriage, right? And if that's the case, that means God's okay with induced miscarriages, which are abortions. And this shouldn't be a problem because God's totally chill with executing even your children while they're alive. Deuteronomy 21 says you can execute the rebellious son. I mean, it's just right there. And also, the penalty for accidentally unaliving a fetus in the womb is not the full price of a human. It's a different price than if you had killed a human. So, God damn says, I'll try to convert the aliens. You know what? They'll try to. You're not wrong. If Christians found out right now that there were aliens on other planets, they would be putting mission trip money together right fucking now to fly to Venus, to go to Venus to tell them about Jesus. That's how toxic their religion is. I got 2 more super chats, friends. Kyle says, have you seen that experiment where they showed the bumblebees like to play? Interesting how a bee can show play behavior. Actually, I've watched a lot of bee behavior. Actually, my dad did some beekeeping when I was younger, and they're really interesting creatures, but they seem to have a moral framework. They seem to have systems and laws. They seem way more intelligent than we give them credit for. So the fact that they have enough abstract thinking to play games, I'm not shocked at all. In fact, I did see one video of a bee playing a trick on other bees, which means they got pretty good abstract thinking capabilities, and they have problem-solving capabilities. So, like, the animals are way more intelligent than we give them credit for, friends. And Chino, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, says, the way to see faith is to shut the eye of reason. Benjamin Franklin. I didn't know he said that. That's a really good quote. But I think you're right. Like, you can have faith or you can have logic and reason, but I don't think you can have both. I don't think faith is reasonable. I think most real Christians admit that. Faith isn't reasonable. That's why it's faith. And if you're a Christian and you are okay with that, good. Just know that it's fine for you. We don't care for it. We don't need it. We don't need your blind faith. Well, listen, friends, we're out of opposition, and I've got to cut the stream anyways in a couple minutes. My sitter, my nanny, is done at 5. And so I'm going to go down and relieve her of her duties. And then me and my son are going to go play in the sunshine and get some vitamin D from the sun, even though it's going to give me cancer. It's not going to give him cancer because he's got melatonin in his skin. He's not as white as me. His skin doesn't do what my skin does in the sun. My skin burns and turns horrible. He just looks better and better. But so we're going to go play. We're going to have a good time, and we're going to do some splashing and probably go on a little bit of a hike. So thank you so much for being here, friends. I really appreciate you being here. I'm going to be live again. Oh, melanin, not melatonin. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was my bad. Melanin, not melatonin. We got another super chat. No more super chats, friends. No more. I gotta go. Thank you for the super chat, though. I really appreciate it. Gene says, possible cause of many miscommunications. You dig into context when theists mean to ask for context, the cherry picking most suitable for the tricking marks into swallowing theological BS. So context, the text that cons. I see what you did there. Don't worry, your joke didn't get missed on me. I appreciate a good joke. But you're right, that's really what it is. Like the theists don't care about the context of the passage. They want to know, where can I go forward or backwards in the passage to find anything that will give me wiggle room out of what it actually says. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for wiggle room. They're not looking for context. They're not saying, what is the most probable meaning of the text? They're saying, what can I find in here to make it say what I need it to say? And that's why fundamentally apologetics is just dishonest. Who's live right now that we can go raid? Is anyone live right now? Let me see who is live. Ian's probably live about now, isn't he? Let me see. Let's see. Obviously, Dean and Parker are live. I don't see Ian live. Is Joel live? No, Ian is live. All right, guys, we're going to go raid our friend Ian on TikTok and on YouTube. Let me pull him up real quick. We're going to go raid allegedly Ian. There he is. He's live right now. And he's making a huge run. He's got like 30,000 followers in like the last month. He's crushing it. Go follow our friend allegedly Ian. His name is Ian, but his handle is allegedly Ian. I don't know why it's not showing. Usually the handle is showing up here somewhere. But our friend allegedly Ian, will show his main page. Allegedly -Ian is the title. So let's go raid allegedly -Ian on TikTok and on YouTube. I'll see you over there in just a few minutes. I'll say hi to everybody. But thank you so much for being here, friends. I really love and appreciate you. Thank you for everyone who subscribed. Thank you for everyone who super chatted. Thank you for everyone who sent subscriptions. A big thank you. For anyone who doesn't want to subscribe on YouTube, I do have a Patreon now in my profile. You can subscribe on Patreon and still get access to the cheat sheet. So big W, friends. And we've got Doug merch in the shop now, and